Yeah, but at 19 with the Vauxhall Viva, I was a babe magnet.
Really?
After-hours football debate for poachers, private eyes...
Could I ask you something personal?
...and pole dancers.
I'm not in market for business, love.
Mike Graham's been all three at some point in his career.
Oh, really, you great big sweaty bush idiot?
And I'll tell you what, you were a better pole dancer than presenter, I can tell you that.
The Two Mikes on Talk Sport.
Look at the lights!
See the time, brother.
Hang on a sec, I want to talk about these raccoons. Cars have to have engines, or else they're not proper cars, are they?
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, and it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. And I have to ask you this question to start the show off.
Go on.
How is the head?
The head is actually recovering, somewhat on the mend. It was a rather longer night than I planned last night, has to be said. One of those kind of, what you can only call spontaneous situations.
Spontaneous?
Spontaneous situations. Took my daughter out for dinner, and it just kind of went on a bit longer than I thought.
Can you live with these excesses?
Well, I don't really do it very often.
I
don't really do it very often, you see.
Will it affect your working life?
I don't think it will. It's one of the great joys of not having to go to work in the morning on a Monday.
Bladderisation.
On a Sunday night, you can get involved in a bit of bladderisation.
Bladderisation at its worst.
It wasn't really at its worst, but there was an awful lot of money spent.
What time did you finish?
It was around about 2 or 3, I'm not exactly sure.
2 or 3 a.m.?
2 or 3 a.m, yeah.
Bladdered out of your head?
Well, I didn't have to do any work.
Around Soho in
Not
London,
staggering,
one
no.
of the seedy areas of London.
Very nice part of London, beautiful bars, beautiful
and
restaurants.
you have no regrets, no recriminations?
No, not at all. It was a very pleasant evening.
I was in bed the minute the game finished.
Yeah, well, you go to bed early because you're one of those characters that has no life. You have no social life. You do all your drinking in the afternoon, which is fine. You can do it that way around if you like.
All my drinking? I hardly drink at all.
Really? You sure?
And I have a sense of responsibility to
Did you have anything to drink yesterday?
Very little.
Very little?
Very little.
When you say very little, what does that mean
exactly? A couple of pints on the way home, that was it, from the Sunday show.
Oh, right, OK, yeah.
Great
we were here
response from
yesterday,
the Sunday show. Great response from the Sunday show.
Yeah, particularly actually, on your rather remarkable stroke of luck with the Lewis Hamilton result.
Well, it wasn't a stroke of luck, was it?
It was a complete kind of... no, it was a freak accident that forced Lewis Hamilton into a situation where he could actually win.
I knew he could...
it was not on the cards at all.
I knew he could get it. But anyway, more of that later.
Yes, absolutely right.
Have you seen what Steve McLaren's been saying today?
No, what's he been saying?
Well, Steve McLaren, I think, must have had too much sun.
Yes.
He said...
Was he not still recovering from that great commentary that he was doing, which went viral on the internet?
That's right. When he wasn't actually commentating on the game, he was commentating on the television version of the game.
But as he was watching Iceland, actually, it turns out that they not only had equalised, but they actually now got the winning goal.
Gone ahead, yeah. Well, today he said Roy Hodgson's done a great job.
What?
That we're much better off now than we were 4 years ago. Seriously,
really?
That we used to not be able to keep possession of the ball. We used to lose possession of the ball.
We have had a lot of possession of the ball. That's true.
And he said the only thing is couldn't score the goals. We couldn't score the goals,
which is a bit of a sort of fundamental problem, isn't it?
Had lots of possession, but couldn't score the goals. But I'm telling you, Wales were like this 4 years ago, and in 4 years' time. I expect us to be like Wales. We can do it.
Yeah, but we've heard all this before, haven't we?
We can do it.
We've heard all this from,
completely mad.
Germany restructuring their entire game after that terrible loss to England. We've heard about Spain doing it. We've heard about Wales doing it, but England never do it.
Utterly ridiculous comments. And I mean, I don't know whether the air up in the northeast of England, where McLaren comes from, I don't think he lives there anymore now, he's been up there for the weekend or something.
You're saying it might be a bit thin, the air or something?
Well, all I'm saying is he was talking utter gibberish. He's supposed to be one of the most highly respected coaches in this country.
Is he, though? Is he?
And he is supposed to be. I didn't say he was. I said he's supposed to be.
After his time at Newcastle, he didn't...
Series of football.
Yeah, but he didn't exactly sort of, break any great records.
And he's, it must be the ex-England managers club. He's bringing out all this defensive
that's exactly what
garbage about what a great job Roy Hodgson had done. We keep possession of the ball now. Keep possession of the ball. Never used to keep possession of the ball.
I think we'll see quite a lot of this.
I think we've moved on in 4 years. And Wales were like this 4 years. We'll win 4 years. 22 on course to win it.
I thought he was far more entertaining when he did the Dutch accent, to be honest. Maybe he should have done it in that. But I mean,
this is what in England.
This is what we'll see a lot of now, though, isn't it? Because there'll be the sort of the pro-Hodgson ears out there who are going to say, don't give him such a hard time. Look at what he had to deal with. Look at all the problems he had. And of course, we're much better off now than we were. I don't actually think that's true, do you?
No, of course we're not. We're much worse off than we were 4 years ago, because 4 years ago we accepted it was a low. The plateau was at its lowest,
right?
And we get up from there. But it's gone worse.
They got further in the Euros 4 years ago than they did this time, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely pathetic. No, what I was going to say is the FA as well sitting around on their hands now trying to pick a new manager. What is difficult about appointing a man to do the job? The first qualifying
nobody
game.
wants the job. I think that's the problem.
The first qualifying, yes, it does. Sam Allardyce wants it.
Who?
Sam Allardyce wants it. What's the difficulty? No. And so on September the 4th, we play our first qualifying game for the World Cup.
Right, against who? Who's it against? Who's it against?
Slovakia.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Yeah. Now, the issue is this, look, that the three men, the three wise men, Mr. Glenn, Mr. Ashworth, and the big guy, 6'7" from Manchester United, Gill.
Gill, yes.
David Gill.
Well, he's a very good man, though, David Gill.
Well, I agree with that,
guy.
but the three of them aren't sitting down together to discuss even a shortlist until July the 22nd.
Well, they've got to have a holiday, no doubt.
Why do you need a shortlist? Why do you need a shortlist?
Well, because you need to go to people who think that they're the first choice, even though already we know that they're not, because they offered it to Gareth Southgate as, caretaker manager. Are they going to put in another caretaker manager, or are they going to appoint a proper manager?
And why, by the way, why are they going to see people like Sir Alex Ferguson, Sir Clive Woodward?
Because they haven't got any ideas of their own.
No, they haven't. I'm telling you.
Why they're bringing your mate Lancaster in, aren't they? Isn't he involved in some way?
Hey?
Isn't
That's
Lancaster
what I'm saying.
coming in?
Why would you talk to Stuart Lancaster, the most failed coach in the modern game, in the modern professional game, in any sport, in anything that we've done?
Yeah.
We haven't failed more badly. Well, actually, we have. The football has got worse than the rugby.
That's right, yeah.
But the rugby was the worst.
Rugby's now in good shape, and the reason it's in good shape
now in very
is because
good shape.
they actually hired somebody who knew what he was doing, who wanted to win and who knows how to win, who happens to be Australian.
But why? You see, the FA want to make this a really complicated process because they're saying it's so intricate, it's so technical, it's so...
And we have to get it right.
Well, that's what Jeff Hurst was saying on the Breakfast Show this morning. We must get it right. I'm sorry, Sir Jeff, but that is a statement of the obvious.
It is. And they've been saying that for years.
Exactly. It's been saying it for the last 10 appointments of England managers.
Yeah.
What you need is one strong man to come along and say, look, I think this guy's any good. What do you two think?
Right.
So Mr. Gill walks in and says, look, I tell you what, there's three people who do this job. One of them's Sam Allardyce, one of them's Steve Bruce, and the other one's Gus Hiddink. Right, let's discuss the options for all three. What do you think?
And what if they offer it to all three and then none of them want it?
No, you go to the 1, 2, 3. You go to the first one first. Gus Hiddink, I think, is raising up in the popularity.
But if you go to Sam Allardyce and say, we've already been to Gus Hiddink and he doesn't want it, Sam Allardyce might say, well, hang on, why didn't you come to me first?
No. You've got to... That's diplomacy. They've got to work that out themselves. You can do that. But I mean, the idea of appointing German boy who's in charge of America...
Jurgen
Klinsmann is such a load of nonsense.
Well, it's not a load of nonsense.
He's never worked in England. He's never worked as a coach in England.
He
has never worked as a coach in England. So I'm sorry, it's ridiculous to even consider him.
Well, Antonio Conte's never worked as a coach in England. He's now the Chelsea boss.
Yeah, but he's not the national team manager. I'm talking about the national team manager.
You need somebody who's good.
It matters.
It's people like you that have held the FA back.
Jurgen Klinsmann's no good.
Jurgen Klinsmann's no good.
No.
Really. Well,
he was a coach.
He was part of the sort of German revival. He was a very good player for Spurs.
I was there, Mike, and it wasn't a revival. It was.
Well, they're the world champions, aren't they?
In 2006 they weren't. It was putting a break on the decline of German football.
Yeah, but that was when he was brought in, and that was the start of the kind of revival, right? And so he could do the same for England, I would have thought.
No, he can't do the same for England. He hasn't.
I
have to have
why
a passion.
You're so against him. I don't know what it is.
If you're a German, you have a passion for Germany because you like all things Teutonic.
Well,
okay,
what about
because there are proud people? We're a proud people.
Eddie Jones is a very proud Australian, but he loves to go to Australia and beat them at their own game.
Yes,
having been put in charge of England. So I think that's a nonsense.
Boy's done damn well. No, it's different altogether. You've got to remember.
How's it different?
Well, it's different because there's only about 7 nations in the world who play rugby, right? Properly
the World
at that
Cup
level.
Organisers.
At that level, no, there is.
Yeah, okay.
And therefore you're very limited in the ability to mix and match the international options in rugby.
But there wasn't anybody good enough in England, so they went to one of their biggest rivals, Australia, and found this guy, and he's been brilliant.
Yeah, he has been brilliant, I agree. They've only now just discovered that it might be a mistake having appointed Mr Ancelotti on £7 million a year, Mr Capello on £7 million a year. And a lot of deep thinking the three of them have got together. It might be a mistake to appoint an England manager who doesn't speak English.
They have managed to work that one out. But the other problem is, of course, that they thought then...
£21 million of Capello led them to that conclusion.
But they thought as well
that
by paying somebody loads of money, that would somehow solve the problem.
Yeah,
that's not necessarily the answer, as we found out. Roy Hodgson, the highest paid manager at the Euros, and probably the worst.
Sven said said over the weekend he'd love another go at it.
Yeah, I
but
think
doesn't think he'd get the option.
You could do a lot. Well, he shouldn't ever appoint somebody who's already done it. I don't think that would ever work.
Oh, no.
By the way...
Well, maybe Glenn Hoddle should still be in the ring, because he wasn't booted out for any football reason.
Yeah, but I mean, he's been...
booted out for bizarre reasons about reincarnation.
Yeah, but he's been out of football for too long. I don't think that works at all.
What would you come back as if we reincarnated you?
I'd probably come back as myself.
Something better than the vision in front of me now,
I
would hope.
Do you mean as some kind of animal or some kind of insect or something like that?
No, a better human being.
A better human being. I'm not sure if that's possible, actually, but I'd just come back as myself. How about this from somebody who's texted in without a name? Porky, did you see Good Morning Britain yesterday? They had Bud the Grey Parrot murder witness on it. Don't effing shoot.
Yeah.
They interviewed his owner.
Yeah, but I did see that, and in fact I was talking to you about it earlier.
You've led the way again on this,
Susanna Reid and the lady sitting next to her, who is the other female presenter, is married to Derek Draper, the former spin doctor guy.
Oh, is she?
Very nice lady. And they were interviewing the owner of the
Is she the one who used to be on the old show?
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Yes.
Kate Garraway, is it?
Kate Garraway, yes, very good. And
whatever happened to Derek Draper, by the way?
Oh, he's still
What's
around.
he doing?
Oh, he writes books and things, I think. Oh, no, doesn't he run some sort of website about psychology or something?
Yeah, maybe he does, some kind of healing thing.
Some healing thing, yeah. But anyway...
It's time, by the way.
Yeah, but hang on, this is important. The way we handled the story was to sort of take the mickey out of it, really, because it's a parrot giving evidence.
Yeah. Very serious story.
The two lady journalists who interviewed the woman interviewed in deep seriousness about, now, how do you feel about your parrot being part of the American legal system?
Well, they did it the way they would have to do it.
And then it was, is it right that a parrot should be taken into court? And they were sternly shaking their heads and, yes, of course, a very big moral dilemma.
Well, it is a murder case.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's funny. It's funny. It's
I know,
funny,
you
a parrot going into court.
You find everything funny, though, and that's not necessarily what would work on Good Morning Britain.
In these hard times, can I just remind you, like, in these hard times...
remind you of the time?
In these politically dangerous, dynamite times, if you can't bring a smile to somebody's face, give up.
OK. You'll never give up, unfortunately. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad dream. You end up tight. Gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes. Very crucial winners and losers coming up a little bit later on, because it is in fact the penultimate winners and losers after this weekend. That'll be the end officially of the season. So we may have to come up with some other kind of competition in the meantime to keep us all kind of interested. But it's 6-5 currently to me. So basically, if I win this one, you're done. You're toast.
Well, I won't be done. Don't worry.
Well, we shall see.
I say never say die.
Really?
Listen, Wales is the big story today.
Wales is the big story.
But I have some information for you about Wales, which is rather disturbing.
Yeah, go on then.
Now,
Wales against Portugal live on Talk Sport, of course.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
Tomorrow night.
Now, have you ever heard of a little town in Wales called, I think it's Trellick?
Trellick? No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It is.
Are you sure?
Trellick? It's something like that. Wait a minute. Here, hang on. I've got it here now.
What have you got in front of you there? Some kind of map of Wales?
No, yeah, sort of map of Wales. Yeah. But I want to tell you about this place because, do you know why?
What's it called?
Well, I think it's called Trellick, but anyway, it's a little town in Wales, and what happens is it's become the swingers' capital of Britain.
Swingers?
Yeah,
really?
much to the chagrin of the local people.
I dare say.
Squealing with delight, having threesomes in the open air, Trellick in Monmouthshire.
In the open air?
Yeah, Trellick in Monmouthshire for 3 days. Yeah. Debauchery.
Right.
Last weekend.
Shocking.
Where they had a swingers festival.
All right. How do you spell Trellick, though?
T-R-E... L-E-C-H.
Oh, OK.
Trellick, OK?
Yeah, OK.
Trellick. And it's in Monmouthshire.
Right.
And it literally was, bring your tent along. It was the Glastonbury version of swinging, except there was no music.
Well, I suppose it's got to go somewhere, haven't they?
It was just Rogerisation en masse.
And is it in somebody's field, then, presumably? Glastonbury, so somebody owns the field?
Yeah, actually, that's what the big row was about. Some farmer locally let out his field.
Well, maybe he's worried he's not going to get any more EU subsidies, so he's decided to kind of branch out.
Well, who can blame the boy? You've got to make a penny or two, boy, haven't you, or whatever that song was called.
Yeah, why does it bother you so much?
What?
Why does it bother you so much?
Well, I just think that the moral compass in this country has gone completely off. At this time of the year in the tiny Welsh village of Trellick, all the talk is normally of plans for the regular summer get-together, held in mid-July, known as the Big Weekend.
Yeah.
It features a dog show, cream teas.
A dog show?
Yeah, hang on,
dog
show.
Shows don't really go with swinging, do they?
This is not the swinging festival.
Sorry.
This is the village festival.
Right.
The village festival is about cream tea, Skittles and a rural walk, followed by a buffet lunch at the Line Inn. However, this year, preparations were overshadowed by another event taking place in the shadow of the soaring spire of St Nicholas's, the parish church.
Sounds like a lovely little place, doesn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what it was? It was a swingers festival.
You've just told me. So how many people turned up for this swingers festival?
About 300, apparently.
300?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people interested in that kind of thing nowadays. There's no reason for them to be stopped from doing it, is there?
Yeah. Now, this is called...
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, it's called Swingfields, right?
Yeah.
It's become an annual event, Swingfields, dubbed the biggest event in the Britain swinging calendar.
Right.
So if you're into swinging, you should be aware of this, right?
Okay, well, how many events are there in the swinging calendar? I mean, is there something every week?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. Keep up.
But this is the Glastonbury of swinging,
Right,
okay? Seriously. And they'll go along there, right, and they'll get down and get with it, literally.
Would you not want to do something like that indoors rather than actually out in a field?
Well, I think it's a summer one, It's I think it's attached to a bit of a nudism as well, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I think so,
you pretty much have to be sort of fairly well unclothed.
Well, you have to be fairly nude, don't you, to get into the swinging situation.
Yes.
It's been held annually at different venues since 2013, and this year, we are 700 swingers.
700?
God, blimey, the figures are growing.
Amazing.
Just imagine if it gets to Glastonbury-sized numbers, eh?
Well, like 300,000.
Yeah, because...
Well, I think it's kind of a niche market, though,
because Glastonbury started off with 700, didn't it?
They probably did start small, yeah.
Anyway, each couple pays £180 and shoots off to Trallick, where the festival's held. Camping...
a bit of glamping?
Well, I think it's camping. I think it's supposed to be camping. I think these are sort of low-grade people, you know what I mean?
Well, how do you know they're low-grade? They might be all sorts of people from all different walks of life.
Well, swingers are low-grade, aren't they?
Well, 180 quid per couple is not that cheap, is it?
It's £90 each. I mean, it's a bed and breakfast for one night, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, for you it's not much money, but I mean, when you talk about low-grade people, I presume you mean people without any money, don't you?
Well, I mean...
Or people with loose moral character.
Well, both. Grubby people, really.
Grubby.
And grubby people usually come from, sort of tatty homes and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
But anyway, look, what I'm saying is, held annually at different venues since 2013, 700 swings, camping, hot tubs, right? So they'll jump in the hot tub for
How do they get the hot tubs in
the
there?
old rumpy pumpy, eh?
What, do they set the hot tubs up then?
Well, I suppose so. They're taking with them, I suppose. Live shows...
What, so you turn up with your own hot tub?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, on the back
back of a trailer.
Back of a trailer, yeah, that's right. Live shows, foam parties.
Is it not covered by kind of the obscenity laws in terms of,
I'd have thought so.
Rogerisation in public? Did we not talk about those people around the back of Waterloo Station a few weeks ago?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Because of sort of lewd behaviour in public.
Oh, I don't want to go into it. Don't into it. Camping, hot tubs, live shows, foam parties. What's a foam party?
A foam party is where they put down a bit of sort of plastic. No, a bit of plastic.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's inside of a ring. They do it on beach holidays and stuff like that, and they fire all this foam in, and you basically, slip around in it. But most people on the beach version of that are actually wearing something.
No. Right, well, foam party, stalls selling adult toys. So, get your old, what's the name of here?
What's the name of Rampant Rabbit?
Well, I wasn't going to say it.
Really?
Those attending can indulge their sexual fantasies with other like-minded guests. And to simplify matters, they have even been given different coloured wristbands. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well,
for the all-inclusive, or what?
Depending on which sexual activity they want to get involved in.
Well, so what if you don't know what you want to get involved in? You just get a wristband for everything.
I don't think we'll go into this.
Does it tell you what the wristbands stand for? Does it give you like a colour-coded thing?
Well, I don't think we should get into this too much.
Because when you go on these holidays to these all-inclusive resorts, and some people have different coloured wristbands depending on what they're allowed to eat or drink.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a class system of swinging, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. It says here, one Twitter post was a woman who posted a picture of herself wearing wellies and lying down spread eagle sorry, on a bondage rack.
Wearing wellies?
Sorry, yeah.
Otherwise naked, presumably.
Well, I don't know.
But I don't understand how they can do this in sort of broad daylight. I mean, I don't really care what they do, but it seems to me that they must have to put like a big fence around it or something, mustn't they?
One middle-aged couple...
No, you can just ignore that question.
No, because I don't know the answer. But one middle-aged couple arrived with cast iron bed frame strapped to the top of their car. I mean, these are quality people.
Well, it's obvious, when you see them driving down the M4, you go, what's that guy doing? Why's he got a bed, or why's he got a bondage rack strapped to the top of his VW bus?
That's right, absolutely.
Very weird.
Oh, well, I don't think we should talk about that.
But I mean, I think each to his or her own. We live now in the age of Tinder, right?
People like that should be shipped off to the Isle of Man, in my opinion.
Well, maybe that's where they'll go next year.
Yeah, maybe they will.
But I mean, the point is that we now live in an age of sort of instantaneous coupling, shall we say.
Yes.
People meet up on an app on the phone, and within a few minutes they're meeting up and off they go.
Quite disgusting. Now then, we've come across this bill of yours last night.
The bill, yes.
Yeah. Do you want to read it to me, or am I going to shame you and read it out to you?
Well, you can read it out to me if you like. I posted it on Twitter. It's not really a secret. I was slightly taken aback by the amount of money that I was charged.
Well,
because the thing is that what was interesting was that we kind of found ourselves wandering about in Soho looking for somewhere to have a drink because I didn't really fancy
you were that desperate? You're staggering around trying to find...
Not staggering around, no, but I kind of wanted to go somewhere rather nice, you see, rather than going to a pub. Didn't really fancy... We just had dinner, had some wine, didn't really want to have beer particularly, so I thought, well, maybe we'll find a nice cocktail bar.
Yes.
And suddenly found myself at the back entrance to the Soho Hotel, which is where, of course, you and I went to interview Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, that's right.
When you hadn't heard of either one of them. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that, yeah.
And you started the interview with to Will Ferrell.
Yes.
So, Mr. Ferrell, this movie is all about the good guys and the bad guys.
That's
you
right.
start off as the bad guys and you end up as the heroes. Is that right? And he said, no. That is not
He did,
correct.
actually, yeah.
And he was very funny, actually.
Yeah, but he was under the impression we'd been to see the film.
Well, I had.
Yeah, but the problem is...
You didn't go.
Well, when I arrived to see it the night before, some idiot said it started half an hour ago, and I said you gave me the wrong time. So,
no, you said you weren't going to come.
I went off in a huff.
No, you said you weren't going to come.
No.
That's what you said.
No,
I seem to remember it that way.
No, I didn't. No.
Then you said, well, as long as one of us has seen it.
Look, I was going to say to you that a few months ago I got barracked terribly badly by the audience, quite rightly so, because I posted a bill of a drinking session in Soho where the wine cost £17.50 a glass.
That's right, I remember that. And you paid something like 54 quid, right?
Yeah, 54 quid a bottle it was,
that's right,
the wine. And the only reason I posted that was to say, isn't this outrageous? How can anybody possibly afford to drink in these places?
Except people gave you a hard time for showing off, didn't they?
Yeah, people thought I was showing off, and I wasn't. But what I've discovered is that the bill you posted last night is from the same place.
Were you in there as well?
Well, it was the Soho House Hotel. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Not the Soho House, the
Soho Hotel, I mean, yeah.
Very nice bar.
And it says Refuel, so that's the name of the bar, is it?
I guess it is,
Soho Hotel.
I think it is,
But it says quite clearly here, Soho Hotel. Now, it says here you had 4 Ricard at £7.25.
Yes, that was relatively cheap, actually. That was the cheapest drink I had.
Ricard, is that like orange French drink, isn't it?
No, it's like Pernod. Same thing.
Yeah, but it's orange, isn't it?
It's not orange. No, it turns sort of milky green colour in ice.
That was the drink, allegedly, that the driver who was in Dinah's car on the night she sadly died had been drinking at the bar at the hotel,
Pastis.
the Ritz, before allegedly getting into his car. Yeah.
I've seen the time, by the way.
Yeah, well, listen, you're not going to stop me now. 5 patron silver. What's a...
Patron?
No, 6 patron silver. What's a patron silver?
It's a tequila.
Do you know how much they cost?
Yeah, I didn't when I bought them.
£12.25
each. It's a shot of tequila.
£12.25 each.
I know.
And it's a shot.
It's a shot of tequila.
Well, it's a little 1-inch glass of tequila.
It was about a 3-inch glass, actually.
3-inch glass of tequila. You had 6 of those at £12.25.
Yes, I know. It was complicated.
What's a Belvedere? 2 Belvedere.
That's vodka.
Right.
I didn't drink that.
And are they shots as well?
No, that was like a vodka and soda, I think.
Right. Do you know how much they are?
No.
£11 each.
Okay. And then you got to add the soda as well.
Yeah, 2 lime soda at £3, £6. So for a handful of drinks, £146.80.
Yes.
That is way in excess.
It is ridiculous,
of what I did, and you should be ashamed.
Well, that was
yourself.
why I posted it, because I was so surprised that it was that expensive.
And your bladderation factor is massive compared to mine, and it's a damn disgrace.
It didn't stop there either.
And I think you might need help.
You think so?
I think you might need help.
Well, you'd be the expert to help me on any problems with alcohol that I may have.
No.
Well, I don't have any problems because, of course, as I said, didn't have to work until tonight. And now I'm absolutely fine.
Yeah, but you've been knackered all day, you see. Dilettante, lazy, idle.
I'm going to be asking you in a moment what it is that you've been doing all day, because you've got a story to tell us about your car. This is Talk Sport.
I've been driving in my car. It's not quite a Jaguar. I bought it in Primrose Hill from a bloke from Brazil.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Lots more coming up, of course. We're going to be talking to our man Peter Smith over in China a little bit later on to find out whether the Chinese are sort of putting more money into Britain or less money. And also there's a bit of censorship going on as well. How about this from Richard, who says, does Porky consider swingers as the great unwashed? I think you more or less said that, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I didn't use that expression.
No, you didn't use that.
But I would say that they're very close to that category. To be honest, you know,
okay.
I don't think it's a very presentable form of living.
It's not a very savoury.
No, it's not
scenario,
savoury. It's unsavoury.
Dee says this. It's become the swingers' capital, much to the chagrin of locals, and he spells it slightly differently. Therefore, pointing out that that's rather clever. Obviously, evidently, another instalment from the journals. Here's one from Dee again, who says, question for Porky, will you be throwing your hat into the ring to be the new UKIP leader or the Tory leader, considering that neither one of the parties now has one?
No, I won't, but I think you'll find that my bet at £250 at 4-1 that...
Andrea
Leadsom could be the next leader of the Tory party and perhaps our Prime Minister, is growing in...
I know, it's crazy, that story, isn't it?
Growing in likelihood, that's all I can say. I mean, people say, well, nobody's ever heard of it. Actually, nobody had ever heard of Mrs Thatcher, frankly. But, well, Thatcher, the milk snatcher, she was Education Secretary.
It's not that nobody's ever heard of it, she just hasn't had a very high profile, has she? Really?
No, but she's incredibly good at her job, apparently. I mean, she was Economic Secretary to the Treasury, that's one below Chief Secretary of the Treasury.
Right.
But the most amazing thing is, she was spotted by Boris Johnson and Michael Gove as an absolute live-wire economist.
And he said, has he not, that he's going to support her, right? That might be the
Boris
kiss
Johnson
of death,
has. Boris Johnson
that
has.
might be the kiss of death,
but she was regarded good enough to be given the promise she'd be the Chancellor of the Exchequer in a government led by Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
So, people must rate her in Parliament.
But she's kind of the Boris candidate, in which case, because of that, he may, his support may be damaging to her rather than actually helping.
I don't think so at all, because I think you'll find there's a lot of backlash against Michael Gove for the way that
there is,
Boris Johnson was suddenly, thrown off the balcony, so to speak.
And Theresa May is kind of seen as a bit of a usurper because she voted to remain. And so
well, she's very clever. She said quietly she was a Remainer, but didn't go around campaigning on it, and then, just in case the vote went the other way...
So she was hedging her bets then?
Hedging her bets,
well, that's not really a great recommendation. How about this from...
That's what all politicians do.
Somebody else on the text without a name. What a hypocrite Porky is, actually all holier than now about the Swingers Festival.
Yes.
Is this the same man who reports almost every week with obvious unrestrained glee upon the latest Rogerisation fest on TV in his Porky Vision slot?
Yes, but that's to
what
draw...
a two-faced, flaky character he is from Jim.
You don't think I do that for any sort of gratification. I do it to raise the issue, to put in front of the...
It's a kind of warning, isn't it? It's a warning.
And our millions of listeners.
Okay.
Of course it is.
Here's one from Matt, who says, by the sound of your bar bill, MG, it looks like you had a bloody good night out. Good on you. Hashtag you only live once.
Yes, but I mean, A, it's damaging to your health. B, damaging, of course, to the moral standards of your young family.
Well, it would be if it happened every night.
Daughter
it was
at the time.
A special occasion, after all.
What special occasion was it?
It was France against Iceland in the Euros. So that was why we were going. We went out to a French restaurant, thought it would be kind of fun to be in a French restaurant.
You didn't watch the game?
They didn't have it on.
No, well, that's what I mean.
Amazingly, all the people who were in the French restaurant...
It was a special occasion. We went to a restaurant where the game wasn't being shown, but it was the night of the game.
It was actually a special occasion because I happened to be in London on a Sunday night, which is very rare, because normally I'm in Sussex. So it was nice to be able to take her out.
Special occasion, just because you're in London?
Yeah.
What do they do? Put up flags along the Mall and, send the Horse Guards Parade band to play a tune for you outside the restaurant?
No, but if you had any children, you'd understand how nice it is to be able to spend time with them. But you obviously don't get that because, of course, you don't have any, do you? Now, let me tell you about your new signing at Everton, right? There's a guy by the name of Axel Witsel.
Axel, I like that name, Axel.
And apparently Ronald Koeman is trying to get him to come to Goodison Park. He's 27, plays for Zenit St. Petersburg.
Yeah, sounds good. And, what's he going to cost?
It doesn't actually... Well, 28.5 million they're suggesting, which is rather a lot of money, isn't it?
It is a lot of money.
How much have Everton spent so far of the 100 million war chest that they've got? They haven't spent anything yet, have they?
I think they have spent
a little bit, 10, 20.
Yeah, I think it's been of that nature. But I like the name Axel because, of course, it was the name of
Axl Rose.
Axl Rose, Eddie
Lead singer
Murphy.
Of the Stone Roses.
Oh no, Eddie Murphy. What the Eddie Murphy character in Beverly Hills Cop?
Beverly Hills Cop was called Axel Foley, wasn't it?
Axel Foley. You got it in one.
Great film.
Great film. I loved that film. Didn't you like it when they threw him through the window?
I did.
When he wouldn't leave the office?
Well, I liked it pretty much throughout. And my favourite scene, actually, is when he goes into that posh members club and throws the guy over the fruit salad.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Which is rather good.
And when he gets really specific and says to people, your worst nightmare, me with a badge, you know what I mean? All that kind of
Different
stuff.
word he uses, but obviously he won't be saying that.
That's right.
And, isn't that 48 Hours you're thinking of?
That's 48 Hours, yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's not Beverly Hills Cop.
No, but that was good as well. That was Nick Nolte,
That was good, yeah, but it's a completely different film.
Yeah. No, it was a different film. But, I mean, I to be honest, I thought Changing Places was even better.
Changing Places, great film, yeah.
Well,
I mean, Trading Places.
Trading Places. Superb film.
Jamie Lee Curtis,
yeah.
You know, it's famous, that film, for being the only occasion where she takes her top off.
No.
You're right.
My God. No.
You remember that bit, don't you?
No, I don't, actually. No, I don't. I don't remember when that was. I thought she did that in...
Well, he meets Jamie Lee Curtis at the police station because she's the one that has to be put up to pretending that he's a heroin dealer, right?
Right.
So that his girlfriend leaves him.
Right.
And then he ends up going back to her place, and that's when she does the, revealing of the top.
I thought that took place in A Fish Called Wanda.
A Fish Called Wanda?
Yes.
Really? I don't think she did.
Because Jamie
no.
Curtis was in that, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was, but she didn't take
it
a
was
top
a good
off.
film as well.
It was.
Anyway,
well,
look,
that's a nice little row round a lot of old films that you've got completely mixed up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's all down to Axel.
Well, what do you think of this guy? Do you know anything about him? Axel Witzel?
No, I don't know anything about him, no.
Okay. Witzel,
I mean, why
wants to
would
leave
I?
Russia.
I don't have a lexicon of, what's it
Well,
called?
you're supposed to keep on top of all these things.
What's that circular thing called that people keep their phone numbers in?
A Rolodex.
A Rolodex. I don't have a Rolodex of all the world's footballers, mate.
Most people don't actually have one of those anymore. Most people keep their phone numbers in their phone.
Yeah, well, I'm not that stupid in case somebody electronically attacks my phone.
Electronically attacks your phone?
Yeah.
Tell us about your car, by the way.
Well, this is interesting, you see. So I go along to a Mercedes dealer at Epsom in Surrey,
Because your tyre problem has not actually been dealt with yet.
Well, this is quite frightening now when you think about it. I went down to the coast and back, right, very speedily in my high-powered Merc.
When you say speedily, within the speed limit,
Within the speed limit, obviously. But, the A3 at 5:30 on a Sunday morning is a very open road, you know
Did
what I mean?
you get that thing with the Guildford Cathedral again?
No, I didn't know. No, I didn't actually. I passed the Guildford
remember when the singing started?
No,
and all
I didn't know. But what happened was the tyre pressure all over the place. Now, I'd been to a previous tyre place, right, a very famous tyre place,
right,
and they'd said, "We've checked all your tyres."
This is the place where you go like 3 times a week and give the guy an extra 20 quid for being such a good worker, right?
That is absolutely right. And do you know what? I had 4 Jaguars. I never had a single tyre problem in 10 years with 4 Jaguars.
Right.
Since I've had Mercs, I've had 3 tyres replaced and 4 punctures mended.
Does that tell you their tyres aren't so good?
No, because the tyres are universal to all cars. I mean, there aren't Mercedes tyres and Jaguar tyres. There are Continental tyres.
Well, could it be that there's more debris on the road?
I think there must be. I don't know if other people are getting big tyre problems, but I didn't have them for years, tyre problems. But I think one of the problems is the tyres these days are so narrow and thin, you know what I mean? There's not much of them. But anyway, the point of the story is, it's a good story, this. So it was still showing 290 for the top left tyre and 220 for the bottom right. So I take it in, and it's a very nice guy.
So it was still overinflated?
Well, the top left was overinflated, the bottom right was underinflated, and the other two were at 2 different pressures as well. Right. So, anyway, he gave me a call about 2 o'clock. I got there this morning at the minute they opened, 8 o'clock. I was the first customer there. I like to help these guys out to get their day started, particularly after a weekend. You, of course, at 8 o'clock this morning,
I was still sleeping.
Oblivious to the world. No, not still sleeping, comatose.
No, I was still
comatose.
Out for the count, you would say.
You'd only been up for 5 hours. And I bet you when you got home, I bet you had the last one, didn't you, before bed?
I didn't go straight to bed, no, that's
exactly.
Right.
So you had another couple, did you?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So you probably got about 4 o'clock.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh,
well, that's in keeping with my working hours, you see. It's actually better for me to stay up later on a Sunday night because then I can sleep during the day and not be tired when I come in.
Disgraceful.
And confused.
But anyway, so anyway, the guy he said, "Look, Miss Parry," he said, "we've solved your tyre problem." I said, "Yeah, what was it?" He said, "It was a puncture." I said, "It can't be a puncture."
But the guy in the other place told you there wasn't a puncture.
It wasn't a puncture. He said it was the electronic equipment in the
he said
car.
The computer was knackered, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Basically, he did. Yeah.
So how much money have you given this guy who got it all wrong? Quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, about 80 quid or something in tips. But I've paid the £65.
Are you going to go back and ask him for the tips back?
No, because look, I'll tell you what happens. I'm going to tell you now. Now, what happens is,
take the time though.
I said, "What do you mean a puncture?" He said, "Yeah, it was a nail in your back tyre." I said, "Well, how did the previous guy miss it?" He said that it's gone in so far that the rubber's closed over it.
In the back tyre? I thought it was the front left tyre.
No, it's the back right.
Oh, okay.
Back right. He said the rubber's closed over it. He said, and these thin tyres. He said you only find it with an X-ray, and I said an X-ray. He said, "Yeah, we X-rayed the tyres. And we found and he said it wasn't completely flat because it was a hole."
Did he not feel like there was a problem with the tyre when you were driving?
No. And do you know what, Mike? I also used my thumb against the tyre every time I got out just to make sure it wasn't flat, and it didn't feel flat. You can see a flat tyre, and it wasn't flat. But what happened was, the air started going out when the car was parked, but when you started the car and started going on the roads, the heat of the rubber on tarmac sealed the nail puncture, and the air inside started expanding. So it was actually self-fulfilling. You see what I mean?
Is that what he told you?
No, I worked that out myself.
Confusing.
No, I worked that out myself.
Well, I
learned that from my physics lessons at school.
No, excellent. We're going to get more details on this coming up in a little while. But we've got to talk to Ross Dyer.
Good idea.
He's coming up next on TalkSport.
Where's he from?
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Recognise that?
Yes, that's the theme music to Beverly Hills Cop.
It is indeed. Not changing places. I'm glad we didn't use that one.
Exactly.
That's a bit slower, really.
Exactly,
now, I've got this for you from Becky, who says, good to hear Porky's tyre problem has finally been resolved.
Yes.
Look forward to the ongoing failures and updates in the weeks ahead.
Indeed.
This won't be the end of it, of course.
Indeed.
Now, we were just talking about Axel, of course, because Axel Witsel is apparently on the radar of Ronald Koeman. He's a Belgian international. Let's talk to Ross Dyer now from Fox, who's a bit of an Everton fan as well. Ross, a very good morning to you.
How are you, Sid?
Very, very well indeed. Now, what do you make of this suggestion that Axel Witsel might be going to Everton? Is that a good plan for you?
Well, we certainly need a little bit of sharpening up in central midfield. I think that Ronald Koeman's steadily trying to get players into the dressing room that he is very familiar with. And, of course, Witsel's been in the shop window during this last tournament. And now, I guess, the transfer talk can begin in earnest that Belgium have left the tournament. But he's had 4 years in Russia, and I mean, he was hot property when he left Benfica. I think in Zenit, you know, he's had mixed reviews. I think a lot of people have built him up as part of that Belgian national team and, you know, the so-called golden generation. He's had a couple of really promising Champions League campaigns and a couple of sort of dodgy ones, I think. So,
yeah. He didn't really stand out in the Belgian side, as far as I know, anyway. Certainly watching him against Wales, you know, Wales was so much better than them in almost every area, weren't they?
Yeah, he's one of those where you'd say, OK, he's going to be in the engine room. He's going to be the box-to-box player. And I've seen displays where, against certain opponents, he's been able to do that. He's found freedom. He's got the buzz about him. He can shoot from distance. He scored a few goals in Champions League football as well, certainly for Zenit and in Europe for Benfica. And I think he's one of those that could still have more to give. You know, he's only 27. Certainly, he offers more to the game for me than, you know, a former Everton player in Fellaini. Of course, he was preferred to Fellaini in that role, in that midfield alongside Nainggolan for Belgium in the tournament. So he's got something about him. But yes, sometimes the game seems to pass him by a little bit, and you wonder exactly how much legwork he's really doing.
Yeah, but I mean, Axel, the whole idea is to get a decent manager who can bring the best out of him. You know, think Chris Coleman and a lot of Welsh players who didn't play at the highest level, and think what a man like Koeman, who got the best out of all his Southampton players, can do for this boy. And I always think, Ross, that when footballers go off to Russia, they basically go for the money, and they're in a football wasteland. I don't think the game ever improves when they go to Russian teams. When they come back, they're never better than they were when they went there.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of those points. I think that Koeman is the right man with all of these signings, and I think it's a statement of intent from Everton when you start looking at the fact that he's going to cost more than Lukaku did. I know the TV money's gone bonkers, and all the transfer fees have gone bonkers this summer. Just look at Batshuayi, who's just come in at Chelsea for over 30, and you know, talking about Benteke again. You know, has he done enough to warrant the same transfer fee that he left Villa for Liverpool in? I have to say no. Yeah. But they're talking about that kind of money. But with 28.5, if that's what it would be for Witsel, you say, 27-year-old Belgian international, a lot more to give, central midfielder, more to his game. He does have some touches where he can link the play together. And I think, you know, Everton are certainly needing that. And then, Russia.
What about Lukaku as well? Because we're talking about Belgium and them coming back from the Euros. Presumably, they will have to figure out in the very near future what Lukaku's going to do. Is he going to stay or is he going to go?
And it's really a case of, I think, putting a deal in front of him and saying, you're best off here. Koeman basically talking him down off the ledge and saying, you know, we believe in you. You've got a chance to make yourself a folklore hero at Everton if you stay for a good number of years here. The fans will love it if you commit to the team. Enough of all of this nonsense, of all of these quotes we keep hearing as soon as the season goes dead or as soon as he goes away on international duty, where he's looking for Bayern Munich or his dad's looking for, escape route to Chelsea or wherever it may be. And you say, we keep you, we build a team around you, we're going to have Ross Barkley playing in a much more advanced position, we're going to get rid of some of this nonsense playing around at the back, or at least if we are going to play it around at the back, we're going to do it with purpose, and we're going to use you, and we're going to give you a lot of support, because I think at times when you don't give him enough support, he just goes missing. And his game, I have to say, to be honest, in the last 4 months, he's gone off the boil.
It's been very hit and miss, hasn't it? And I mean, that was the case in the Euros as well. We got Wales, of course, coming up tomorrow night, Ross. Wales against Portugal. I mean, you can see them winning this, can't you?
You can, and then you can also see a bit of a stitch-up job from Portugal to kill the game I think technically Wales will be the first to admit that, without Aaron Ramsey in the team, that Portugal have probably got their number in terms of individuals in technique. Portugal are capable of killing games.
But you would have said that about Belgium, wouldn't you? You would have said that Belgium, man for man, are a much better collection of players than Wales are, and yet, by the end of the game, they were completely sort of overrun and dominated.
But they're far too open, Belgium, aren't they? And they proved that in the very first game against Italy, and I think they showed, Wales tactically outsmarted them. Chris Coleman and the players really got the game plan together. They showed their individual brilliance as well, which they do have. I'm not saying that Wales don't have great individual talents at times, but the game plan worked perfectly in their favour over the 90 minutes. Against Portugal, I can see Portugal really trying to kill the game, take away that impetus that Wales build up. And I think without Ramsey, it might be a bit of a hard night's work for them to try and shut down Portugal. They have that ability at key moments in the game, Portugal, where you feel they're not playing well, they're not getting they're not dominating the game the way they should be, they're not creating enough, but then suddenly one little moment, they'll do an interchange around the edge of the area, or they'll get wide, or they'll use the pace of Ronaldo. Nani's been pretty useful in the tournament as well, and I can just see them getting a goal and then killing the game. And that's the problem I see for Wales. Well, they can't get it going.
It could be. And Ross, Portugal could get to the final without winning the game over 90 minutes. I mean, that is a disgrace. And do you know what? I think it's indicative of this tournament. I think until the Italy-Germany penalty shootout...
Do you not think it's been an exciting tournament?
No, I don't. Really? Until the Italy-Germany shootout, right, I don't think there was a decent moment in the game apart from Wales. Iceland, obviously, a couple of shocks. But the fact that Iceland and Wales were getting through, does it now indicate, Ross, that we play these tournaments at the wrong time of year? Very tired players, very heavy legs. Harry Kane was obviously suffering from some sort of fatigue. Maybe Ronaldo's suffering from some sort of fatigue. I think the tournament's been a little bit of a failure, and if Portugal get to the final without winning the game, that seals it.
I think you're right. I think there's far too much football, if we're honest. It's a 12-month game now, and the problem is even in the off-seasons, even in your 2017s, your 2019s, all of these players will be touring the Far East or Australia or America or South Africa, as it's been the case, with certain teams. And you just end up basically making the players not have an off-season, not being able to do the real preparation work for the whole season. Once you get to the end of that season, I thought the first few games of this tournament, everyone looked dead on their feet.
But the problem is, Ross, as everybody always says, if you give them time to rest, basically the clubs will go on some Far East tour, it'll take them to America or something like that, because, the commercial aspects of club ownership now demand it. And if you're going to have things like the Qatar World Cup, for example, played in December, everybody moans that, that's the wrong time to take a break in all the European leagues. So you can't really move it. In fact, I think, Porky, you said it was a bad idea to play the World Cup in December, didn't you?
A very bad idea.
So where are you going to play it then?
Well, all I'm saying is maybe the tournaments come around too often. I don't know, But
play it once every 8 years?
Well, something like that, yeah. Because
that's ridiculous.
Well, the thing is, you've got players now playing 12 months a year. When do they get a break? I don't think Harry Kane has stopped playing football for 3 years.
But the clubs don't give them a break either. They get maybe 2 weeks off.
Well,
and that's it.
Somebody's got to think about it. Germany are going to win this tournament, Ross. I've said that from day one, and I have no reason now to change my mind whatsoever.
I thought you said France were going to win it.
No, I didn't. I've never said France are going to win it. I said from the start it's Germany.
Okay.
You've been saying France, but I've always said Germany.
I said it would be a Germany-Spain final, but I didn't expect Spain to get knocked out so early.
Well, I see Germany. Do you see anybody else other than Germany winning this, Ross?
Do you know what? You have to say that Germany are strong favourites. However, I think France in that semi-final, I've just got a feeling. For some reason, Mario Gomez coming out of the team means that Germany just have to change things around. I think it will mean Müller going a little bit further forward. Müller might need that, actually. He's not had a very good tournament.
Yeah, but they let 2 goals in against Iceland, and their defence is flaky.
Well, they'd already scored 5, though. They didn't care, did they?
Well, don't care. They let 2 goals in, and their defence is flaky. The Germans will take tremendous advantage of the way Iceland got behind the French defenders.
OK, if you say so. Ross, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Ross Dyer there, pundit, of course, with Fox and ESPN. We've got loads more coming up. Wales, of course, taking on Portugal live right here on TalkSport tomorrow night. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to go over to China and find out what's going on with their economy situation, whether there's going to be more football investment going on from there into the Premier League over the next sort of few months. Here's one from Irish one who says, funny how the Germans, Spanish and Italians never look tired, Porky, when they're winning tournaments. Tired players, give us peace. Yeah. Although, I mean, the German penalty shootout, of course, was unusual in as much as they missed so many of them, and they'd never missed that many penalties before, and you'd say it might have been because they were a bit knackered.
Yeah, it could have been, or maybe because they're just ridiculous. Yes, of course.
You don't look as if you're slightly distracted.
No, I'm not distracted at all.
No,
see, the problem with you is because I'm right on the ball, because I haven't been bladderising myself over the last 36 hours.
Well, that's what you say.
Well,
the difference between you and I is that people know what I do because I go on Twitter and I say this is what I'm doing. You, on the other hand, claim that you're doing things like feeding the ducks, but nobody ever sees any pictures. You did it again tonight, just arriving at TalkSport Towers.
Yes.
There's no picture of you arriving at TalkSport Towers.
Why would I put out a picture of me arriving at my place of work?
Because people don't actually believe that you're here yet.
Millions of people who listen to us arrive at their work every day.
Yeah, but they don't lie about when they got there, otherwise they'd be fired.
No.
They don't go, I got here actually 2 hours earlier, so you're going to have to pay me 2 hours more for the work that I did.
Yeah, but we're only contracted to be here from the time the show starts. The fact that I put in hours and hours and hours of preparation is just another element.
Here's one from Ian who says, hooray, someone in TalkSport has actually said what we all know, there is too much football. Knock me down with a feather. But in the end, as we were saying...
Yeah, but I didn't say that. That was Ross, our correspondent.
No, but you said that they have hardly any time off now. But everybody knows that if there isn't a World Cup and if there isn't an Olympics and if there isn't a Euros, then there's always some kind of tour that gets put in pre-season, post-season. Yes. That's why, the players are so knackered. And also, you might say, there's too many competitions on during the season.
Well,
the League Cup, the FA Cup, the Europa League, the Champions League.
I mean, there's all sorts of plans now, isn't there, to get those trimmed down at the expense of European football. Replays getting rid of, midweek games, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You've got to keep up.
Now, have you got your winners and losers ready? Because we'll be doing that a little bit later on. We're going to be going over to Beijing very shortly to talk to Peter Smith. And, of course, we've got lots of things to mention which we haven't talked about yet. For example, Chris Evans, we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Chris Evans.
And Chris Smalling.
Yeah, and a list of the top 10 records over the last 60 years.
Top 10 records of all time.
Yeah,
we'll find out if you've actually got any of them. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. There will, of course, be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Darren says this, Porky, you're a bit hard on Portugal, saying it's a disgrace if they get to the final without a win. If Everton won an FA Cup in the same way, you would not call them a disgrace. Well, I suppose that's the different kettle of fish.
Yeah, a different kettle of fish, because Everton are very dear to my heart, obviously, but you don't win the FA Cup by not winning games anyway. Well, I
mean, they have won games, otherwise they wouldn't be going through, but they haven't won them, as you say, in the traditional manner.
Well, that's right, and so many games now decided on in extra time and on penalties. You begin to wonder whether the level playing field of football is too level these days.
Although actually there haven't been that many penalty shootouts, have there, in this particular Euros competition? And Robbie says, sorry, Porky, the Euros have been fantastic, great stadiums, great grounds, and they're all full, and plenty of goals. I tend to agree with Robbie. I think there's been some great games, you have to say. Well, there haven't been many games.
There's been some exciting games. I don't think there's many. It hasn't been a terrific amount of great football, I don't think.
Well, I don't know. I think, well, of course, we get used to Premier League football, which is sort of end-to-end, terribly, sort of riveting, dramatic stuff. And in internationals, it's just not really like that. I mean, take England as an example. I mean, I don't think any of the England games were particularly enjoleable. Really.
No, they weren't.
Wales' worst performance, funnily enough, was against England.
I tell you, Mike, the England games were painful. They're painful to watch, because every minute that went by an England game, you thought we're going to concede a goal, or we're not going to score a goal. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You had no feeling of flair or dynamism or ambition or anything like that. So
listening to Gareth Bale talking about how happy he is and proud he is to play for Wales, and they keep putting him up as the one guy that talks, and he's so kind of relaxed and almost kind of ambassadorial.
Relax, don't do it.
And it's in complete contrast, isn't it, to anyone that you ever hear talking for England, who always looks like, if it's Wayne Rooney, always looks uptight, he always looks like he's not sure what to say. It's a completely different picture.
Gareth Bale emanates pride in his country. He emanates confidence. He emanates the ability to enjoy the good fortune that Wales are
and he's modest at the same time.
Through.
And he's modest at the same time as being confident, which is something you could learn from, actually.
And so inclusive of all his teammates all the time. Asked tonight whether he or Ronaldo were the best player in the world. He said, I'm a team player.
Yeah.
Are you asking whether Wales and Portugal are the better team? He said, because that's all we talk about in the Wales camp.
Yeah, exactly.
There are no stars in the Wales camp.
You could learn a lot from Gareth Bale.
Terrific guy.
How about this from Jerry? He says, come to Epsom Mercedes-Benz to get your tyres x-rayed and get your head done while you're at it. That's you get 2 for 1.
That's a really good idea.
D says, 8 a.m. Monday morning, a garage mechanic's nightmare. That Plank's back again asking about his tyre pressures. Again.
It's a bit harsh,
yeah.
isn't it?
Well, I mean, imagine when you show up with the same problem week after week after week.
Yeah. Now, Lord Rallo.
Yes.
Good name, that. Says here, I agree with old Porky. The Euros have been a bit lacking, but there have been some great underdog stories. And that's what saved the tournament. Iceland and Wales have saved the tournament. Otherwise, it would have been very, very nebulous.
Well, I was saying on the show yesterday that I thought that the penalty shootout between Germany and Italy, you'd have to say, is one of the greatest penalty shootouts we've ever seen, even though it was also one of the worst. How about this from William? Hopefully the BBC will have a lower wage rate Top Gear now because Chris Evans is stepping down. Amazing story, that. It's on all the front pages, isn't it?
I tell you what, this is quite amazing. You know, Chris Evans has been a feature of the entertainment scene in this country for 20 years. Terribly successful newcomer when he was on The Big Breakfast, and then don't forget your toothbrush.
Yeah.
And these were all
and then he became a sort of media mogul as well, didn't he? Because he owned the company.
He brilliantly bought Virgin Radio with the, obviously won the city and got the money and all that kind of stuff, and then resold it for a huge profit of about 80 million quid. And good luck to him. He was very bright in those days when, media packages like media companies were going for ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah, they were.
And in fact, a lot of people lost an awful lot of money on buying companies which weren't worth what they turned out to be. But he did extremely well. He did brilliantly well.
No, he's had a fantastic career, but I think maybe on this particular occasion he bit off a bit more than he could chew. I mean, we talked a lot about how he was kind of becoming a bit of a workaholic. He had his Radio 2 show, he had the One show that he did as well. I think at one point he was also doing the Friday night show and Top Gear. And it's come under an enormous amount of pressure. And after all of that pressure, finally he's leaving.
On one day, I remember, when it just broke that he got the Top Gear gig, right? I remember him putting out a tweet saying something like, what a working day today. And he'd actually started by getting up at 3:30 in the morning, gone off to do his Radio 2 show. From there, he'd gone to the set of,
Top Gear, was it to go to Top Gear to sort of work on some upcoming episodes or something like that?
Well, no, I think he went first to the
One show?
No, it was the
Channel 4 thing.
Channel 4 thing.
Yeah.
Thank God it's Friday, because they revived that. He then went to a planning meeting for Top Gear. He then went off to his publishers, because he'd just written a book and all that going. And he said, it was amazing. I've been working for the last 36 hours non-stop.
Yeah.
Now, that's great when you do that for the first time.
But you can't keep it up, can you?
I was about to say, I know from experience how it then starts to become a terrible weight on your shoulders. It weighs you down. You get very depressed.
Well, when you have too much on, also you can't concentrate on one thing.
You can't. And because you're not giving your best to any one particular function, you can get terribly depressed and feel that the world's in your shoulders. But anyway, the other story I was going to talk to you about is: do you think that this romance between what's her name of Taylor? What's her name?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
You're still going on about that?
No, and Tom
what
Hiddleston.
What are they doing now?
Has become an industry. There's now pictures of them frolicking around in the water off Rhode Island with all her sort of top celebrity friends like Cara Delevingne.
Oh yeah, the actress.
Yeah, I suppose
or the
she's
model.
No,
she's a model, isn't she?
She's a model, yeah, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, hang on, are they carting like some of the world's top photographers around the world with them on the private jet?
They must be.
Because every time but he's now wearing a T-shirt saying "I love TB."
Really?
Sorry, what's her name?
Taylor Swift.
TS. Is it TS?
Well, it would be TS, unless he loves Tony Blair. Maybe he loves somebody else.
In a T-shirt saying "I love TS." So he's wearing T-shirts and I love Taylor Swift. They've only known each other about 6 weeks, apparently.
Is it not very out of character for him to be doing this kind of thing? Because, I mean, I've never seen many pictures of Tom Hiddleston really sort of anywhere.
Well, I've never heard of Tom Hiddleston before The Night Manager.
Well, I mean, he's been in lots and lots of things. But
but if he's not
the kind of guy. Well, he's not the kind of guy that the paparazzi follow around, is he?
Well, exactly. Yeah,
no, I mean, it's like Kenneth Branagh being followed around by the Pat for some bizarre reason.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I mean, the cynical sort of old Fleet Street person in me would say, well, maybe there is a bit of PR going on here, but I can't imagine why, really, unless Taylor Swift is sort of addicted to that kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, does she need any publicity at the moment? She got a flop record or something?
Well, no. She's one of the biggest selling artists of all time.
If you want to be really, really cynical, and I have no evidence that this is the plot, but, I mean, he is definitely in the running to be the next James Bond.
Yeah, but this surely would not be the James Bond machine, would it? Is that what you're saying?
No, it might be his machine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a James Bond machine at all. I'm saying it could be his machine because if you're pictured in different exotic locations around the world with a very beautiful young woman who just happens to be the world's top pop star or one of the top 3, put it that way, then I think your chances of...
It might have the opposite effect, of course. They might say, well, he's now a bit too lightweight. He's now kind of a tabloid fodder.
Well, it could.
And also, I mean, if you were sitting at a news desk or a picture desk and you saw the first picture of them together, you'd go, oh, OK, that's interesting. But after about 5 goes...
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Why are they still doing it?
I don't know. Well, because then it becomes a story that they're trying too hard to be together or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there is a version of what you say that it could be damaging him to be seen as a lightweight. But on the other hand, if he's become so famous around the world now, it's got to be good for the Bond franchise.
Maybe, we shall see. Woodenhead says this, how great the Euros are is going to be determined by if Wales win it or not, in my opinion. Everyone loves an underdog tale. Well, that would be extraordinary, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
I mean, I can see them getting past Portugal, but, I mean... And then I guess if they do that, then anything is possible, right?
Yeah, well, anything is possible, absolutely.
Right. There's one from Davies who says, since Mr. Parry has wasted 20 grand on the lottery, he should put 20 grand in his will for the listeners. I don't know where that's come from.
OK, well, I tell you what, let me put this back to, what's the name of that chap?
What chap? Davies?
Is that David?
David, yeah.
All right, David. Well, David, listen, thanks very much indeed. Would you like now to send Mr. Mike Graham a little note saying that if I'm going to leave the listeners 20 grand for buying lottery tickets over the last 20 years, perhaps Mike Graham might leave £100,000 for the money he's wasted and literally set fire to in buying cigarettes over the last 20 years.
Is this you saying this or somebody else?
That's me saying it.
Oh, OK.
That's me saying
what difference does it make to you what I do with my money?
Well, why does it make any difference to you what I do with my money? Yet you roundly mock me for spending money on lottery tickets.
Nothing to do with me.
Lottery tickets...
You revealed the other day that you spent 20,000 quid on lottery tickets.
And on lottery tickets, there's a chance of a return.
Yeah.
You might get a return on a lottery ticket. In fact, I have had a few returns. My biggest win is 1,600 quid.
Yeah, that was the one that you got with the ticket that I gave you the money to buy, and then you never gave me a share of it.
No.
I remember that very well.
No, not at all.
Time, by the way.
You, on the other hand, spend money on cigarettes and you literally set fire to your money. So you are far more responsible spending money on cigarettes. You are, of course, storing up horrendous health problems every time you stick a cigarette in your mouth and light it. So
I'll remember that next time you ask me for one.
Yeah, that's right. So your £100,000 that you've spent to try and kill yourself and set fire to money pales into insignificance compared to my wise investment in lottery tickets.
But you get a lot more enjoyment out of smoking a cigarette than you do out of buying a lottery ticket. That's another story.
Oh, no, I don't. I love the thrill of perhaps getting a lot more money.
Really?
That's what I do,
The thrill of getting a lot more money that you don't need. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Need a little time to wake up. Need a little time to wake up. Need a little time to rest your mind. You know you should, so I guess you might as well. What's the story, morning glory?
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, winners and losers, coming up a little bit later on. How'd you mate Liam Gallagher, by the way? That is, of course, the Oasis best-selling album. What's the Story, Morning Glory?
That's right, 5th best-selling album of all time since the chart started in 1956.
Yes, have you got it?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've got 2 versions. I've got one in each.
You heard 2 versions?
No, I've got 2 versions of it. No, I haven't. I've got 2 copies.
What do you mean?
Of it.
What are you saying?
I've got 2 copies.
Why have you got 2 copies?
I've got one in Stockbroker Belt and I've got one on the coast.
Oh, okay.
So I like to listen
See,
to
this
it
is
all
why
the time.
Spotify is a good thing to have. You've got Spotify. You can have the music wherever you go. You just have it on your device and you just play it wherever you are.
What device?
Well, you can have it on a laptop. You can have it on your home computer. You can have it on your phone. Whatever you like.
On your phone?
You can, yeah.
Well, and then you plug your phone into a console when you go to your house.
Put it in a dock or something like that. You can do that. Have you got one of those docks?
No, but I'm going to get it all sorted.
You should.
I need a new telly down on the coast, and I'm going to get one of those curved ones.
Oh, are you? I think those. I think they're going to kind of be phased out. I don't think a curved TV is the future.
Oh, really?
The only way you can have a curved...
just come in, though.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of things come in and then disappear. Remember, the 3D TVs were going to be massive, and then nobody really enjoyed watching them.
No,
so that all
they
died
disappeared,
a death. And the problem with these curved ones is, unless you're sitting directly in front of it...
that's what I do.
Yeah, I know, but if you had other people in your house, which I know you don't normally...
Not very often.
If they're off to the side...
Yes.
They can't really see what you're seeing.
I don't care about them.
I know you don't.
I want the best possible vision.
That's the point.
And want to see it, you know, so it wraps around me. I'll get a century-round sound system as well. So,
century-round?
Yeah, it'll be like being in the cinema.
Yeah, it will be, yeah.
Anyway, let's let our listeners know that the number one best-selling album of all time, since the chart started on July the 22nd, 1956, that's 60 years ago today, is the Queen Greatest Hits.
Queen's Greatest Hits, I bet you got that.
I have, and it's followed by number 2, ABBA Gold, ABBA's Greatest Hits.
ABBA's Greatest Hits.
Now,
so that proves to you and to me, of course, that basically, you know, you are the average consumer because you've got both of those albums.
Of course I have.
I haven't got the Queen's Greatest Hits.
And you've always mocked me, so no, is that all you've got, Greatest Hits?
Because that is all you've got.
Sorry?
You've just got Greatest Hits albums, haven't you?
No, I've got loads of other albums.
What's this one? This is Queen, isn't it? Bohemian Rhapsody. Do you play it very often?
I don't play Bohemian Rhapsody very much because it's not my favourite song, but I love so many of the Queen hits like Radio Gaga and We Will Rock You.
I'm just going through this list of 60 albums to see how many I actually have.
Killer Queen and all that kind of stuff. So that's 1 and 2. Now, the biggest selling studio album ever, i.e. one that's not Greatest Hits, you won't be surprised to know, is the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Not surprised at all by that.
Absolutely. And number 4, which is amazing because it only came out in 2011, so that's 5 years ago, is Adele 21.
That is remarkable that she is in that company, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing because when you think about it, further down the list, much further down the list, for instance, Michael Jackson, Thriller, 1982, Adele beats him.
Yeah. That's number 6. He's also in with Bad as well at number 9.
He is,
So 2 Michael Jackson albums there.
Yeah. Now, Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory, number 5.
Yeah.
And as I said, I've got 2 copies of that. One of your favourites, Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, number 7.
And that's what I was surprised about to see Adele above that, because people are still buying these older albums, right? I mean, I'm not sure about Oasis, but certainly people are still buying Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Not least because after a few years you might have to buy it again because you've broken it or it's worn out or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm getting quite a good tick list here of... I'll be able to tell you soon how many of these albums I've actually got.
We're all fascinated and waiting for that verdict, Mike.
Well, because I think you should do the same thing. I think what you should do is go through the same process, and you can tell me how many of them you've got. Because you see number 10, there's another Greatest Hits album from Queen.
It is,
Greatest Hits 2.
I know, it's amazing,
so,
isn't it?
I mean, have you got that one as well?
No.
Why not?
Well, I might have it, but I don't recognise that cover.
You've missed
as being one of in my collection. I've got Rumours, Fleetwood Mac, which is number 11. I've got Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which is number 21. I've got The Beatles, 2000, which is number 20.
That's 1, isn't it? Isn't that the one with all the number 1s?
Yeah, the number 1s, yeah.
That's a new Beatles album, though, isn't it? So none of the other Beatles albums are in here. Like the original albums as such. Why are you making that noise?
I'm just trying to find out. Dango in the Night, I've got Fleetwood Mac 54. Rumours, of course, I've got.
Have you got Progress by Take That, number 57?
No, definitely not.
All right.
No.
How about Swing When You're Winning, Robbie Williams?
No, I haven't got that. I wouldn't buy that.
Very popular down in Wales, that one.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. ABBA's Greatest Hits. The first version, which was published in 1975, is at number 46.
Right, have you got that one as well?
Probably.
Because ABBA Gold is the one that most people have got. That's the one that's 2, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was released in 1992.
Yeah.
There's an amazing collection of records. Dire Straits actually surprised you. They're in at number 8. Brothers in Arms, 1986 record, which has notched up sales of more than 4 million. 5th studio album from the British rock legends.
I've got 34 of these 60 albums.
Have you really?
Yeah,
That's amazing. That is amazing. Tracy Chapman, you got her?
Tracy Chapman, yes. I saw Tracy Chapman actually live.
Really?
In New York, yeah.
Coldplay?
Coldplay, yes.
Parachutes?
Yeah, got that. There's quite a few Coldplay albums in here as well. X and Y's in there as well.
Bat Out of Hell, Meatloaf.
Got that. The
Spice Girls, number 29, Spice Girls.
Have you got that?
No, have you?
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I bought the Spice Girls album along with everybody else because, funnily enough, my daughter was about 7, I think, when that came out.
Yeah,
and she loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I bet she did. Yeah. In fact, little girls in those days used to do an imitation of Victoria Beckham and a pout with a hairbrush.
Well, I think it was her 7th birthday, and we rented out like the village hall. And she and all the little friends from school were doing the, If You Want to Be My Lover, and I found it slightly kind of off-putting, actually. Yeah. These 7-year-old girls doing this kind of, Spice Girls dance. It was a slightly queasy moment for me, had to be said.
No, I can understand what you're saying. So that's amazing. The history of pop in one compilation of records, eh?
Indeed. So you're claiming that because of the 2 Greatest Hits albums at the top, that you're entirely kind of justified in just buying the Greatest Hits. But you see what you miss out on, though, and this is the reason I say you should try doing other things, is that you miss out on an awful lot of the songs that they write that actually didn't become a massive hit.
Well, maybe, but I haven't got time to listen to all them.
Haven't you?
No, I only listen to the hits because I know that I like them, and I can't spend time lying around saying, "Oh, I tell you what, I think I'll play this record by, somebody like The Verve or something." What was that called? Autumn Hymns or something.
The Drugs Don't Urban Hymns.
Urban Hymns, that's right. Yeah, Urban Hymns, and just in case, and if there's 12 tracks on it, I might listen to it for, how long would that take, an hour or something like that, and find out I like one of the records. Why would I bother?
Well, then you can get a playlist on Spotify, and you can just take the one song that you like and make a whole list of songs that you can play in the car.
But I wouldn't bother listening to the album in the first place.
But that's what I'm saying. You should find the one song that you like and then make your own playlist.
But I can only find the one song I like. I've listened to all the other records.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now listen.
Anyway, the reason I started this conversation before you started banging on about all these records was I was asking you about Liam Gallagher, because you got into a stat with him, which we talked about on the radio yesterday. Right. But there may be people who are not aware of what's happened latest. That's going on.
Well, it happened on last Friday, just to get to the start, and Liam Gallagher, who you pointed out has 1 million followers, but does not follow one person.
No, exactly. Yeah, very narcissistic. He doesn't follow anyone at all.
Exactly. So he puts out a note last Friday, and I was having some lunch somewhere and looked at it, thought it was rather amusing, that he said "our kid" and spelt it RKID, so he's referring to Noel Gallagher.
Yeah, that's what he calls him, right?
Yeah, as confirmed today, Oasis will never reform. So, I've responded to lots of Liam Gallagher's protestations in the past, and he's never even noticed, which I don't expect him to.
But he noticed this time.
He noticed this time because
it's probably because you said it's not very surprising he doesn't want to reform, because you're, how did you describe him?
All I said, first of all, was you can't really blame him, can you? He's a Lennon-McCartney type musician, and you're a pub singer.
Yes.
And he took exception
He didn't like that, did he?
But the language he sent out
shocking.
in
we
condemnation
can't read out any of his
not on
his
a family
tweets.
show.
No.
Not on a family show.
But what's interesting is that he hasn't actually been back on Twitter since your little spat.
No.
So I wonder if you've, chased him off Twitter.
Well, I don't know. A few people said, hey, Liam Gallagher put Porky in his place, once and for all. I don't agree.
He did call you Papa Smurf, which I can say.
Oh, he said, you little freak, go off and play with your Noel doll. Yeah. That was the best of it.
And you haven't even got a Noel doll.
No, I haven't got a Noel doll, no. That was the best of it. But the worst of it was really horrible language, to be honest, and quite offensive.
But you would expect that from a guy like that,
I suppose you would. Look, and in one of my tweets to him, I said, look, I admire you so much, I want to be you. I wish I'd led your life. All I'm saying is, pal, that your vocals were largely loaded by your brother Noel. And then, he came back again, and I said, well, hang on, can anybody name one great song you wrote? He then claims he wrote Look Back in Anger.
Don't Look Back in Anger.
Don't Look Back in Anger, yeah that's right.
Which, of course, he didn't, right?
Sorry?
He didn't write it, though.
Well, I've no idea.
Well, I mean, it's never been said that he wrote it.
Well, I always thought Noel Gallagher had written that song.
Well, he wrote all his songs.
Well, that's what I thought, yeah. But anyway, you've got to give him some credit for, developing the sound of Oasis. I don't know how much credit he gets for writing the songs.
Maybe what we should play you is something from BDI, which was his solo band that he had for a while.
Didn't do that well, did it?
It didn't do terribly well, no.
No, exactly.
But we can judge it, though, and you can listen to it and see if you like it.
Yeah, we could,
Johnny says this, watched Oasis at Nebworth in 96 in front of 120,000 people.
Oh, amazing.
When they were the biggest band in the world.
Exactly.
Well, they were the biggest band in lots of parts of the world, but one of the things was they never quite cracked America, did they?
No, they didn't. And do you know why? Because they went to America without Liam.
Well, that was the time that I met. I had to go out and meet Noel at Chicago O'Hare Airport, where he told me to F off because he had to leave without Liam, and they started to tour without Liam.
They did. What happened was they had some bust up, right? And I remember at Heathrow Airport, he got out of the car and refused to get on the plane.
Right.
And when he was asked what he was doing, he said, and I remember he pointed with two fingers to his throat and said, "Voice, voice." And house. And he claimed he had to buy a house.
Voice house.
Right. Voice house. You get it?
I don't get it.
And well, he was claiming his voice had gone, so he couldn't sing. But he also claimed that due to some domestic incident he was involved in...
He had to go back to the house?
No, he had to go and buy himself a new house.
Oh, I see.
Which, you can do any time of the day or night, really, when you've got a few million quid.
Well, you can.
But
that was the thing. But also the tour was quite a small tour in terms of the size of venues, and they never quite got any bigger than that.
That's what I'm saying, but that was supposed to introduce him to America. So the rest of the band fly off to America. Noel then takes on all the responsibilities, not only having written all the songs, not having sort of, produced and played lead guitar on them, then had to sing as well. And without a shadow of a doubt, Oasis, without their iconic lead singer, were not the same band in America that they'd been here during their development.
No, that's very true.
Yeah.
How about this from Matt, who says, how can Porky spend £20,000 on lottery tickets and call himself the man of the people with a straight face? Very good question.
Well, I'll tell you why.
I can't. You have to answer it because we haven't got time.
I can answer it. That most of that money goes to charity and good causes, and that's why I invest in the lottery.
I see.
Not for self-aggrandisement, not for self-reward, but to help others.
You could just give it straight to charity, of course, and then you cut out the middleman.
I do a lot of that as well.
I know you do.
I do.
It's shockingly true. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're going over to Beijing to talk to Peter Smith in 1 second. Let me just read you this. It says from David, most great albums actually tell a story from the first to the last track. Greatest hits are a bastardisation of these particular stories. And Johnny says, an absolute fact is Oasis stole the name of their band from the Oasis Leisure Centre in Swindon. I didn't know if that was true or not. They didn't really steal it, did they? I mean, they just decided to name themselves that. So
there's quite a few things called Oasis. There's a drink called Oasis.
There is,
in plastic bottles, which you buy in railway stations and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there are other places where you can buy it. It's not just available in railway stations in plastic bottles.
No, but that's where I see a lot
that's
of
you. And that is you in a nutshell, isn't it?
Well,
because you only buy Oasis drinks in a railway station, you think that's the only place they get sold?
No, not necessarily.
It's typically you, that.
Not necessarily.
Anyway, let's talk about much more important things, because world affairs, world events, etc., are happening all over the place, and in China, where they're watching very closely our economy.
Yes.
It could be that there's some opportunities to be discussed. Peter Smith is here. Peter, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning. Actually, from Shanghai, not Beijing.
Oh, you're in Shanghai. I'm sorry, I was misinformed. Now, may we start off...
No problem. It's absolutely frying.
Let's talk about the economy here, because obviously you'll have seen the whole Brexit fiasco and, the uncertainty that's going on. Nobody seems to know who's running what and whether, the Tories going to have a new Prime Minister, whether Labour are going to have any opposition left at all. What's been the reaction in China to, sort of the fall of the pound and sort of investment opportunities?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Of course, I think one way is the fact that Britain is seen as very much, from a business point of view, for many Chinese people, as a way maybe sometimes into Europe, or at least it was perceived as this way, because there's so much culturally in the past that connects China and Britain historically as well, much more so than with some of the other European countries. So tourism's massive, Chinese tourism incoming as well. So all these connections, really, I think the Chinese were a little bit worried here that there might be some disconnect. Britain has been very helpful in fostering Chinese investment into Europe, and they're a bit worried that if Britain departs, that friend in there, in the European Union, might no longer be there. On the other side, with the pound dropping, that's great for tourism, Chinese tourism.
well, not only tourism, Peter, but a friend of mine who deals in property says that with the fall in the pound, the Chinese are now going to pile in and buy even more property than they've bought already, because London, they say, can only ever increase in value.
Yes, that's right. I mean, London, whatever happens in or out of the European Union, is always going to be a very desirable destination for Chinese investors. Property, I said to my dad, actually, before the referendum, I said that were Britain to pull out of the European Union, Britain's going to be owned by China in 20 years.
Yes, that's right.
There's going to be less interest from EU investment itself. The Chinese will nip in there, especially if the pound takes a tumble. I don't think you can underestimate the respect that the Chinese have for Britain and the traditions as well. I do a lot of work here in education for universities, Chinese and British universities. Universities of Nottingham, you might know, has a collaboration with China.
Well, Porky knows about the University of Nottingham, don't you? Because you went to Trent Polytechnic.
No, I went
close by.
I went to the University of Trent, which is the other university in Nottingham, Peter.
Very good university down the road.
Indeed. You're absolutely right.
So what you're saying, Peter, is that there might be some hesitance about what will happen with the sort of European connection. But, I mean, if, for example, because nobody's really quite sure whether the UK will, in fact, leave in the sort of in the complete sense. It will kind of, have a different part to play in the relationship with Europe. Might be different, but, it may be not that dissimilar to what we have now. But what you're saying is that China would still have a pretty good relationship with Britain in terms of the kind of trade and everything else.
Yes, I think so. I think that the tradition and also the respect between countries is there. I think there will be some disconnect, though, because, as I said, Britain was seen as an integral part of the European Union, and that was important for China to get into that market. So I think there will be some problems with that. And, for example, a Chinese company might think of buying a British car company or something like this. It might reconsider that now and think of relocating inside the EU and not inside Britain. So I think that is going to affect it. At the end of the day, the EU is a bigger market than Britain.
It is, Peter, but the Chinese people are very articulate in business matters, and I'm sure they must realise that when they deal with companies in the EU, they are dealing with companies that provide a lot of red tape in business. The whole idea of Britain getting out of Europe, or one of the big ideas, is to free ourselves from the shackles of this immense European legislation, which we think slows our economy down. So we expect to be a better proposition in the future.
I think you get really going into political aspects here, Mike. I mean, the thing is, red tape will have to be replaced with more red tape if it's not there. So we really have to wait and see whether the red tape is actually an issue at all. And also, as well, you've got to remember that the free market or the open market is not just an open market. It basically removes so much of those regulations and things you have to do for international trade. So all these things, little things which we don't even think about, will have to be reintroduced. So I think we're ready for a lot more red tape, Mike, actually.
So do you think that might discourage perhaps future investment? Because we've seen a lot of Chinese investment in the football business, particularly in the Premier League, and in other situations as well. Do you think that might sort of be put on hold for a while?
Well, I think I think the entertainment industry, of which football is an arm of, I think that's out on its own, really, when it comes to this sort of stuff. Perhaps we'll see some reintroduction for foreign quotas for foreign players, etc. But I don't think it's going to affect at all, how much Ronaldo costs or how much he's attractive to a Chinese person, or Gareth Bale in the future if he was going to China. I don't think that would affect the football industry at all, if truth be told.
Okay. No. Now, what's this story about China banning news websites from using stories gleaned from social media?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is really something which, it's the vagueness of it which is strange, because it says you cannot use, I think it's the wording of something is, you're not allowed to invent stories based on imagination or rumours or something like that.
That would have ended Porky's career back in the days of his tabloid reporting.
Well, pretty much maybe. None of the Red Sox would have, would have even existed.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure as Mike knows, there is no such thing as a made-up story. There's always a kernel of truth there somewhere.
Exactly.
Along the line. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Mike. The Red Sox, they never make up a story, and there is something there always. But the thing is that with this, I think it's so much open to interpretation, because if you say something's a rumour, what does that mean? Does that mean that people don't like some new law that's been introduced or some new policy, and they start disagreeing with it on social media? Does that mean that the media is not allowed to cover it or not allowed to publicise it? There can't be any demonstrations. It's so open to interpretation.
Is it more about sort of cracking down on people using social media in a way and using and accessing Twitter and that kind of thing?
Well, I think one thing you've got to remember, Mike, is that there's no anonymity over here when it comes to social media. With Twitter and Facebook, of course, you can be anonymous back in the UK or in other countries. Here you can't. You have to register. And when you register on a website, say Weibo or WeChat, one of the really big social media here, you have to register your ID number. So there's no such thing as anonymity. So the fear is always there. That if you say something wrong, that you will be, punished in some way. So yes, of course, this is just a way of making as well the mass media, the newspapers and the websites, it's trying to get them a little bit more under control, because I think there is a feeling probably in the central government in China that they've become a little bit lazy, and they are starting to base some of their editorial meetings in the morning around things that they're seeing on social media. So I think they're trying to rein them in and trying to get a real, trying to get a handle on it before before these rumours tend to spread. But what does rumours mean? That's so much open to interpretation.
Sure, absolutely. And talking about stories, Pete, because it's always fascinated me. Now it's a terrible tragedy that 180 people have been killed in flooding along the Yangtze River. Now, just tell us a bit about the Yangtze River. It's one of the world's great rivers, but unknown to the West for such a long time. But this is the river, isn't it? The Chairman Mao used to swim up and down in 50 miles a day and all this kind of stuff,
really?
Just to prove how hard he was.
Was it really him, though?
Yeah, you hook, line, and sinker yourself for that one, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. One of the great rivers of the world. I think, isn't it Monty Python who wrote a song about the Yangtze?
That's
I
right.
think.
River full of fish, I think the line was, wasn't it?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, obviously it's a tragedy what's happened to those people, but we should also say that regular flooding is much more common here in this part of the world. It's not so much the fact that floods happen, it's preparedness for them that's really the problem, because they can be doing a lot more when it comes to protecting communities against the waters. I think that's really the story here. The floods are going to happen. We know that. Increasingly they're going to happen.
How long is the...
We've seen the problem back in the UK with that as well.
Oh, we have indeed. How long is the Yangtze, Pete? And, is it, is it revered in China like the, that river in India that everybody reveres?
Well, the Ganges.
Called? The Ganges, yeah.
The Ganges. The Ganges has much more religious overtones, of course, down in Varanasi, if any of you have ever been there.
Yeah.
But yes, it is. It's seen, of course, and it is named in this shall we say, this communist literature as well, as like you say, Chairman Mao had a relationship with it. So yes, it is. But I really don't think there's so much about the name of the river here, Mike. It's to do with more with the fact that there should be much more preparedness, especially with a burgeoning economy. A lot of people here are a little bit worried about where the funds are going to, why they're paying their taxes, if every year we have these big floods and so many 100 people die. It's a preparedness issue. It's the same as we're having in Britain as well.
I can fully understand that.
Peter, thank you very much indeed.
Pete, thanks very much. Great to speak to you.
I don't know why you were asking him what the length of the Yangtze River was. I mean, it's not why we get like a China correspondent.
Yes, it is.
But I could tell you the length of the Yangtze River if you want. It's 3,915 miles.
That is incredible. Do you
know
how far that is?
Yeah, I do, yeah. 3,915 miles.
That is the distance from, let me tell you, from Glasgow to
where?
I'll tell you now.
It might take some time to work it out.
To Turkey.
Glasgow to Turkey?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it's...
it is.
I think it might be further than that.
No, I think it is.
I'll check it out for you.
Imagine a river that long. Imagine getting in a canoe in Glasgow and just going with the flow and whoosh, off you're away, and very soon you'd be in Istanbul.
Amazing what goes through your mind. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
You know what that is? Recognise the voice? Have you been struck dumb?
Which what?
Have you been struck dumb?
No, I'm thinking.
Really?
I'm thinking aloud.
I haven't got time for that.
I thought at first it sounded a bit like Oasis, but it's not.
Well, you're very close.
Yeah.
It's the band that Liam Gallagher went to...
is that the BDI thing?
BDI, yes.
BDI.
I mean, you can still hear his voice, can't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it sounds just like Oasis, actually.
Do you think?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Well, that's because he's singing.
Yeah, exactly.
Woodenhead says Liam Gallagher is just jealous that Mike Parry's a better singer than he is.
Yeah, I think that could be true.
Which I think is a bit harsh. Johnny says the Oasis Unplugged performance by Noel was absolutely amazing, and the music mixed with all the violins, etc., was so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And don't get me wrong, please. I've never knocked the fact that I think Liam Gallagher is a top performer, is a brilliant singer, a great frontman. I'd say he's easily as good as Mick Jagger in terms of the iconic frontman.
But he hasn't lasted as long, has he?
Well, no, of course he hasn't. But he hasn't lived as long, has he? So,
and also Noel, as we said yesterday, has kind of, since they broke up, because they were always fighting and all the rest of it, I mean, he's kind of made it very clear that he was the guy that was really behind it. And,
Yes.
and the saga of Liam's kind of solo career tells you basically that he hasn't been as successful.
No, exactly, and all that. But I mean, the only thing I object to a little bit is the terribly abusive language that he delivered to me. But I couldn't care less about.
Well, you can have the moral high ground in that
I've got
case
moral
because
high ground.
you didn't use bad language.
But I just don't want other people to read it. It's horrible, nasty, bitter and rather resentful stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, there's just a million followers of his that will have
Well,
seen
that's
it.
right, but it makes him look as though he's very sore about the fact that his career is now washed up.
I'm sure he is.
At a pretty early age.
I'm sure he is.
It's a shame, really, because I'm sure he had a lot to offer.
Yeah, I'm able to tell you that the Glasgow to Turkey is 2,742 miles.
Well, I did pretty well, didn't I?
So you're basically 1,000 miles
out.
No,
I'm not.
It was 3,915.
Well, that's nearly 4,000, you see. If I'd have said 4,000, I'd have said push on beyond Turkey to somewhere like Afghanistan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've talked about 3,000 miles to New York, right? So I suppose if you go I don't know, a third of the way across America, that would be how far you'd have to go, and that's the length of the river.
Amazing.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That is utterly incredible.
And I took from what Peter said to you that you bought into the idea that Chairman Mao used to swim in that river, and I think that was all part of the little red book thing and the whole myth about what he did.
Yes.
And he never actually did it, by the sounds of it.
What do you mean?
Well, he said you bought into it, suggesting that it's not a true story.
No, he actually said Chairman Mao had a relationship with the Yangtze River.
Yeah, but he didn't swim in it, though.
Of course he swam in it.
He said you bought into it, which means that he's telling you that you've actually assumed the story to be correct, when in fact it's not.
No, I didn't take an interpretation of it at all.
I think you got it wrong.
I think it was the amount of miles he claimed to have swum in it. He definitely swum in it. I've seen pictures of him in the Yangtze River,
probably
right?
wasn't him, though.
Yeah,
remember those pictures of Saddam Hussein swimming in the river, and there was like all these lookalikes all around him. Nobody actually knew if he was in there or if he was, which one he was.
Yeah, but it's easy to look like Saddam Hussein. You just need a floppy moustache.
There was a guy actually.
It's
at
very
the Express,
difficult to look
like
Mao Zedong.
Really?
Chairman Mao. Yeah.
There was a guy at the Express who looked exactly like Saddam Hussein. Do you remember?
Which one was
you
that?
His name away, but he was on the production side. He was on the back bench.
Oh, Dick.
That's right.
Was it Dick?
You don't have to give his name away, though.
I saw him in Joe Allen, the restaurant in Covent Garden, about 2 or 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
He'd retired and was saying what a brilliant thing the Daily Express pension policy was, because he'd done 30 years and he was now happily out for lunch every day on his pension.
And his pension's probably very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I think this is very interesting, this thing about China and what they've said about, not using rumours and stuff like this, because I think this would have finished you off if you were having to aspire to this. It is forbidden to use hearsay to create news or use conjecture and imagination to distort the facts.
Exactly.
But that's what you do all the time in terms of me.
No.
You're always distorting the facts and trying to make me out to be some kind of, alcoholic maniac and lunatic and getting into all sorts of trouble, which is, of course, untrue.
No, I act on evidence only.
Oh, really?
Listen, talking about evidence, right?
Yeah.
Now, you and I, one of these days, it'll have to be next year now because it's happened again this year, I'm going to have to go to Henley Royal Regatta.
I don't think you'd like it.
It's
full of what you describe as top people who would look down on you. They would sneer at you.
No, they wouldn't.
And realise that you were not one of them.
No, I'd feel pretty much at home.
No, you wouldn't, because it's full of public schoolboys and girls from Cheltenham School for Girls.
When I worked on the Chester Chronicle those years ago, young reporter, etc., there was another paper in town called the Cheshire Observer. And was
that owned by somebody else?
Yeah, it was owned by a different newspaper group altogether. They've merged now, actually, funny enough, but it was strange to have 2 weekly papers in the same town. But anyway, the guy who was head of sport there was called Badger. I don't know what his real name
Badger?
was. I can't remember.
Why did they call him that?
He looked a bit like a badger, I suppose.
Was his face black and white?
No, he had a bit of like black and white in his hair or something like that.
That's very unimaginative, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I agree. But I mean, I inherited him as a colleague. I didn't choose the name Badger for him or anything. But he was a lot older than me. But he was the sports editor across the road, and the only sport he actually liked was rowing.
Right.
So every year he used to.
Cheshire's not particularly known for rowing, is it?
Well, the River Dee is in Chester. Yeah, I mean, my school, the King's School Chester, was a big rowing school.
But you weren't in the rowing team, though.
I wasn't in the rowing team. No. As you'll see from the pictures in the King's School annual magazine, which you've seen already.
Well, I've seen the pictures of you in the football team.
Yes,
I haven't
exactly.
seen pictures of rowing, though.
Oh, there was a rowing team picture,
there?
in the same one. Anyway, point story is, so every year Badger would say, I can't wait to get... He loved Henley Royal Regatta. So I used to say, what's so good about it? And he used to take his girlfriend with him.
Right.
And he had a funny girlfriend. She was about 25 years older than him.
Right.
It was really bizarre.
And he was already older than you.
He was already
older
than me.
How old was she then?
About 50 in those days.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So he was one of the first toy boys ever.
Well, I suppose
Probably.
so. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. But And to be perfectly honest, they both had a face like a bag of spanners.
That's not very nice.
They weren't.
That is not a nice thing to say.
The sort of couple who were probably with each other because nobody else would have.
And do you think they went away together and thought, if only we had the wit and the charm and the sort of joie de vivre of that very handsome man, Mike Parry, across the road?
Maybe. But anyway, the point is, he used to go, I said, and I said, and he used to go on about the striped blazer and the boater and all this, And I said, well, don't you get? And he said, no. He said it's the unknown festival. He said, I go there, we stay in the same place every year. He said, it's sedate, there's a few people walking along the river all the time, there's a few little Pimm's tents to go in and out of and have a few drinks. But the reports I'm getting from Henley now is that, for instance,
it was probably quite civilised in those days because not that many could work. But now, I mean, I went to it once with a friend of mine who does that kind of thing. He invited me and I was like, OK. And I don't think I saw one actual race.
No, of course
most
not.
people don't actually bother watching the rowing.
No, they don't. For instance, the one that's just happened, 200,000 people descend. Now, I've been to Henley-on-Thames because there's a great restaurant there called The Complete Angler. And I've been there with Al a few times.
And Henley's a lovely town, isn't it? You go over there's quite a nice hotel, pub type thing as you go over the bridge.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely, and I think I've stayed there. But anyway, the point is 200,000 people descend on this place, right, and it just turns into chaos. The police took, this year, because I think it finished at the weekend, took a mobile prison. And because so many of these...
they certainly need a drunk tank, I'm sure.
Yeah, so many of these posh toffs, right, who get lagered up, end up, making, complete nuisance of themselves and all that.
Right.
And you've got to remember, a lot of these parties as well take place on boats, and people are always falling into the river.
Right.
It's a wonder nobody drowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is an incredibly sort of popular... Well, people now talk about it as part of the sort of, summer society scenario. You go to Wimbledon and you go to Henley and all of that. But as I say, I didn't find it particularly kind of... shall we say, satisfying as far as I was concerned. We had a sort of what they call a tailgate party in the car park, and had some champagne.
You find it a great social event?
Not really, no? Because most of them, it was full of people going, "Rah!" It's the Hooray Henry type.
Yes,
I don't really get along terribly well with. My daughter went though a couple of years ago and said that it changes completely now because at night, instead of everybody leaving, they pop up with these nightclubs, and suddenly, the place is going until about 2 a.m.
Right, okay.
And when I went, everybody was kind of leaving by 5, 6 o'clock.
Yes.
But now... they have versions of these kind of rather well-known nightclubs from the West End.
Yes.
And they charge you then like 25, 30 quid to get in.
Yes.
And because you're trapped there and you're already drunk, you pay it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
so
sure.
it's become a much bigger sort of nighttime event now than it's ever been.
Sure.
But all I would say is don't ever get on a train back from Henley to London.
No.
After the event, because inevitably there's all sorts of horrible things
it's like
going on.
Cheltenham on Ladies' Day.
Yeah, even worse actually.
Yeah.
But I don't think you'd like it though, because it is, as far as, even though you say these are top people, you're the top schools, they would shun you because you're not one of them.
No, they wouldn't shun me at all. No, rubbish. I'm a public school boy, and that's the sort of people who go to Henley.
You went to a grammar school.
Yeah, I went to Direct Rank Grammar School, which is on the headmaster's register.
Yeah, but where do you think it is in the pecking order of, the Chelsea snobs? Do you think it's above Eton, Harrow, Marlborough?
And if you're on the headmaster's register, you are officially a public school, and it's founded by Henry VIII, OK?
Well, they won't curry mustard with these guys.
It does, yeah.
They'll go, so what?
No, it does.
We went to
Believe me.
This is Talk Sport.
I am sailing home again, across the sea.
Is this from that chart as well? Rod Stewart's greatest hits?
No. I don't think it was in it, was it?
Are you sure?
I don't think so.
Well, I presume that's why they're playing it.
I didn't see it in the list.
Oh, right, okay.
But I didn't go through every one of the list.
I didn't see Rod Stewart in there.
No.
I think it may be some reference to the Henley Regatta, even though they don't actually sail anything there.
Yeah, it is a reference to Henley Regatta.
We could have had the Eton boating song.
Jolly boating weather. Did I tell you, we used to... one of the jobs at the Chester Chronicle I was talking about, I used to cover the gang show, every Christmas. It was amazing. All these guys dressed as scouts up on the stage at the Chester Gateway
I think you told me the story, that you covered it, but you didn't actually watch it.
No, I didn't know.
And you got it completely wrong.
Yeah, I had a hot date that night, actually, with a girl who worked on the other paper.
May I draw your attention to this from the Chinese government? It is forbidden to use hearsay to create news or use conjecture and imagination to distort the facts.
Yes.
Which is what you did.
What?
when you covered the gang show.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. Well, no, I got somebody to watch it for me.
Yeah, but you got it completely wrong. I remember you telling me the story, and then they complained, didn't they?
Well, there was a bit of a complaint, yeah. But...
not to worry.
But they used to sing, the finale was always, we're rolling along on the crest of a wave. And they all used to do the old rowing action.
But even though you never actually saw it, though.
Sorry?
Even though you never actually saw it. Now, listen, we haven't got much time, but I'm going to tell you this from two people, Jez and Ian, who say the complete angler is in Marlow, not Henley.
Yeah, well, it's nearby. It's nearby.
So if you go to Henley, you won't find it.
It's on the way to Henley.
Yeah, all right then. This is TalkSport. There will, of course, be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. William says this, went to Henley-on-Thames on a day out a few years ago, and an ice cream van nearby wanted £10 for a cornet.
Good God.
So I could do without that. I don't know whether he went to Henley just when the regatta wasn't on. Surely you wouldn't have to pay £10 for an ice cream out of a van, would you?
No.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I suppose that they're taking advantage of the popularity of people there. I mean,
the tourists.
Yeah, I like walking along the Solent. I see ice cream vans sometimes. I go and buy myself a 99er.
Do you?
Yeah, and it costs...
Do you ever get two flakes? Or
No.
do you only get one?
No, only the one.
And
Mr.
Whippy.
I think that cost me like £2.40.
Yeah? Well, that's still quite a lot of money, isn't it, for an ice cream?
It might not be £2.40. It might be £1.80.
You don't know what it is, really, do you?
No.
Money means nothing to you.
I think it depends on what size of...
I think it does, yeah.
Whippy cornet
well,
I have,
180 I would say would be a small one.
Yeah.
And if you get
£2.40,
double, a bit more. How about this from Robbie?
He
says, MG, you think Porky wouldn't fit in at Henley Regatta with his half a lager and spam butties? You are correct.
Excuse me? Spam butties? What are you on about? I don't need spam butties.
Don't you?
Listen, in our political roundup today, we've got to mention the fact that Mr. Farage has quit.
Yes, indeed, he has.
Yes.
Well, you can see why, because he's basically saying my work is done. Because, the British public have now voted to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
And if it's the UK Independence Party, you kind of have to say, well, is there any point in them carrying on, don't you?
Yeah, but he's quit before, hasn't he? And then sort of come back and all
he
that
is a man who
all over the place.
Has done more flip-flopping, I would say, even than you have in the time we've known him.
I didn't realise he's been an MEP for 17 years.
Oh, yeah.
17?
Well, that's where he started, isn't it? I mean, he got himself into Europe.
Yeah.
And as they said to him last week when he made his sort of farewell speech, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You're out of Europe.
That's right. I mean, look, whatever you say about Mr. Farage and what he's all about, I never liked the image of a pint of beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. I just never liked it.
But he's funnily enough, a very down-to-earth guy. I mean, he used to come in here quite a lot in the old days of TalkSport.
Yes.
And he's a very pleasant character.
No,
he's been sort of vilified.
Yeah.
So he does come out with some silly things sometimes, but... Basically, I think he was never really quite suited to the world of politics because he's a bit too kind of straight talking.
Yes, I suppose you're right, but I like our politicians to be a little bit sort of, remote and a bit elevated because I think all this man of the people politics and all that leads to the Boris situation where actually people don't take you seriously. Seriously, I mean, they just don't.
I mean, the idea
that
Boris Johnson, who has come from a very privileged background, pretends to be the man of the people is a nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but in the end, people just didn't take him seriously. They thought, a guy who bounces around like he does, how can he stand at the dispatch box in the House of Commons and, bolster Britain's position in the world by talking the country up or explaining a situation in a difficult period of our history or something like that? And I'm sure that's what people said.
I'm sure he would have had those conversations as well with his friends and maybe his family. And they say, do you really want to be Prime Minister? Because if he did become Prime Minister, he'd have to behave in a way which is completely alien to him.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't sort of go bumbling around the world and do his kind of slapstick routine
that's exactly
at the White
House,
House, could he?
That's what I mean. And one of the accusations against him was that, would he really take home all his red boxes and read all his files every night so he's on top of the
Probably
game?
not.
Whereas Theresa May, you get the impression she's very schoolmarmish about that sort of aspect of her job.
But people have been critical of her, funnily enough, because, and I think maybe this is a little bit unfair, because she doesn't have children. They're saying, what does she know about family life? What does she know about the way
that's
it is?
That's not her fault.
Well, it may not be her fault, but I mean, people look at still women in politics who don't have a proper sort of children and family and all that as being a bit out of touch.
Yeah, but no, what I'm saying is I read extensive interviews about Mrs May over the weekend. She's had diabetes for a lot of her adult life, and a lot of the complications of that led to the fact she wasn't able to have children.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying it's anything other than...
It's a big regret, and of course it is. But
exactly.
They have to live with it.
But, I mean, is it fair that she's then judged on that? I don't think it is it?
Yes. No, of course it's not. No, she shouldn't be judged on anything like that.
Now, I've got this message from Neil, who says this. Please, can you wish my lovely girlfriend a magnificent 25th birthday in Porky's best Martin O'Neill voice.
Right.
He says, thanks, gentlemen. A lot of people send these in,
yes.
but they forget to mention the name of the person concerned.
Have we got a name?
So we don't have a name, so maybe you could do it as an anonymous.
What's the name of the chap?
His name is Neil.
OK. I'm telling you, Neil, your girlfriend is magnificent. Magnificent. I'm telling you, you don't want to let that girl go. Happy birthday.
Whatever your name is. Thank you, Neil.
Yes.
Now, what about this Chris Smalling story? Have you seen this in the
well, this is a bit weird, isn't it? Chris Smalling goes to Bali on holiday after, the tournament, and I have to say, he was one of our few successes.
You think he was a success?
Well, no, but he was one of our few non-failures, put it that way.
Yeah, I suppose he was all right, wasn't he?
One of our few non-failures, and he's gone off to Bali, which is a hell of a long way away from France, by the way.
It is.
It's around the other side of America.
It's nearly as far
South
away
Pacific.
as the length of the Yangtze River.
Yes, it's right. It's further away than the Yangtze River. It's about 10,000 miles away. And apparently suffered from food poisoning, according to reports.
But the first story said something else, didn't it? It was food poisoning latterly.
Yes.
Well, they said it was. He certainly did faint, but it was unclear whether it was heat exhaustion or something else. They're now saying food poisoning.
No, exactly. And as a result of which he apparently fell over and cut his head and was pictured on a hospital bed, but happily signing a Manchester United shirt for some adoring health worker.
Yeah, well, he's got a bit of a sort of a cut forehead from the looks of the pictures. 3 lines on his head, it says in the Sun.
Yes, that's right.
Then 3 lines on an elephant. There's a picture of an elephant. But so it's one of those freak accidents, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Strange.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's strange, and we wish him well, of course. Now then, it's come to my attention that in Suffolk, which is, of course, I have a place there where I live, seeking a hedgehog.
How's the rib, by the way? The old dinghy?
It's good. It's good.
Is it in the water? Is it out of the water?
No, it's out of the water at the moment.
Is it inflated?
Yes, inflated.
Do you keep it inflated all year round?
Yeah, of course you do.
Do you?
Yeah, you don't deflate it.
Why not?
Well, you
don't use it, though. When was the last time you
don't.
actually went out in it?
It gets used, don't worry. Gets used.
Gets used?
Yeah. Now, what I was going to tell you about, right, is that over there they're looking for a hedgehog expert, the first in Britain.
In Suffolk?
Yeah, protecting hedgehogs is now become a job. Charity is seeking someone to be the face of hedgehog conservation. Salary $24,000. It's at the Suffolk Wildlife Trust, and the hedgehog officer will be required to make Ipswich the most hedgehog-friendly town in Britain.
Why?
Well, because we've got to save the hedgehog. Now, do you see...
why in Ipswich, though?
Well, because it's in Suffolk and it's rural.
Well, I mean, it's not... Ipswich itself is not particularly rural, is it?
Well, around Ipswich is. I mean, if you've got the coast down, the Suffolk coast...
around London it's quite rural.
Oldborough is beautiful, beautiful up there, you know.
Have you seen hedgehogs up there in your visits to your palatial pad?
I personally haven't, but
no.
I mean...
Have you ever actually seen a hedgehog ever? A real one?
I think I did when I was a kid. Certain I did when I was a kid in a garden or something like that, but I've never seen one since. Now, it says here... Applicants for the job must have experience of ecological surveying, that is, as well as developing community-based conservation activities and engaging effectively with a wide range of people.
Right. Did you do that when you did your course at Trent Poly?
What?
Whatever that ecological surveying is.
No.
No? Well, you did some kind of surveying, didn't you?
No, ecological surveying means... It doesn't mean like you're doing a survey, like with a theodolite.
Oh, you don't have one of those to do that?
No, you idiot.
Well, what's ecological surveying, then?
Ecological surveying means being aware of the landscape in which you're working.
Well, just looking around at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Now, the Suffolk town, Ipswich, has become a hedgehog hotspot. Study has shown that hedgehogs are... No, it is.
Hedgehog hotspot?
It is, hedgehog hotspot.
What's that mean?
Study has shown that hedgehogs are highly adaptable and adjust well to city living. Findings presented at the Society for Experimental Biology...
That doesn't sound good.
At their annual
experimental biology?
Yeah, experimental biology.
That sounds like something out of Portland Down.
Yeah, it does actually, yeah. At their annual meeting in Brighton, highlighted the importance of private garden areas in public parks, OK?
What, you mean, so there's a part of the public park which is dedicated to hedgehogs?
Yes, that's right.
Well, that's never going to work, is it?
And German researchers have fitted hedgehogs with temperature-sensitive transmitters to allow them to monitor hibernation patterns, winter nest site use, and the territory over which the animals roamed.
I see.
The hedgehogs tended to stay in private
gardens. Who's paying
gardens.
for all this, by the way?
Well, this is the Hedgehog Fund.
The Hedgehog Fund?
Yeah, during the day, venturing out into deserted local parks at night to forage and look for mates. We found that urban hedgehogs had much smaller nightly ranging areas than their rural counterparts. They ranged over only 12 acres versus 50 for the hedgehogs in the
Well, that's not
countryside.
entirely surprising, is it? I mean, why would you have to find out and discover what their hibernation habits are? I mean, surely in the winter they hibernate, and in the spring they come back out.
Yeah, but you like to know how long they hibernate for.
Well,
now,
from winter to spring.
eh?
From winter to spring.
Yes, but how? That's too general. They want to make it more specific.
Yeah, but it probably changes on an annual basis because it depends on the weather, doesn't it? I mean, if the weather is colder, then they stay in hibernation for longer.
Well, this is what they like to find out. Now, all this has been discovered by Dr. Lisa Warnecki from the University of Hamburg.
Fine.
Yeah, and she says the trouble with towns is they're fragmented.
Do you not get the idea that there's far too many people sticking their noses into the hedgehog scenario?
No. Fragmented. Towns are fragmented by houses, roads, walls, fences, and over-tidy gardens. Bringing together your wildlife conservation skills and your experience of leading and developing community wildlife initiatives, you'll mobilise...
What a load of old rubbish.
Mobilise participants...
It's the most ridiculous story you've ever come up with.
Hang on. Mobilise participants in Ipswich to create a street-by-street network of hedgehog... sorry, get my words out here. Of hedgehog-accessible habitat to monitor their activity.
Really?
And it's funded by the Heritage Lottery Grant and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society.
Oh, great. Are you giving money to them at the moment?
And no, not at the moment. And Dr. Warnecke from Dr. Lisa Warnecke from the University of Hamburg has been over to Ipswich.
Great.
And she said gardens and public parks are very important for city hedgehogs. They need gardens with natural vegetation.
Why don't she just do it in Hamburg?
Eh?
Why don't you just do it in Hamburg?
I don't think they've got any hedgehogs in Hamburg. And public parks less immaculately pruned with plenty of natural bushy areas, OK?
There's nothing wrong with that.
It says the main problems urgent...
You've seen the time, by the way.
Hang on. The main problems urban hedgehogs face are injuries caused by fences, plant netting, gardening tools, sickness from swallowing, rat poison. Right?
OK.
They've got until July the 13th to apply for the job. I could go back and live in my place in Ipswich and apply for that job.
Be the hedgehog captain of Ipswich.
Yeah.
Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
But just when everything is going fine and absolutely nothing is wrong, this funny little hedgehog's always around, and every time he wants to sing me this song. Oh, you know all the words and yes, some more.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics, and a good one here from James, who's tweeted out the Two Mics. I hope you don't forget to wish your USA listeners a happy Independence Day, because it is still July the 4th over there, which of course it is.
It is, yeah.
So we should wish them a happy Independence Day.
Indeed, we should. Happy Independence Day. And did you have any good July the 4th over there?
I had some great July the 4th over
so
there.
yeah.
The one I remember most was very, very hot, though, was when I went to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Because Maggie Hall had a party, funnily enough.
Oh, right.
And we went and watched the firework display on Capitol Hill.
Right.
And I think it was something like Roberta Flack.
Singing,
which was lovely.
On the Mall.
But I was I'd never been that hot in my life.
No, that's right.
It was awful.
Maggie's place was around the back of Capitol Hill, wasn't it? In that suburb there.
Yeah.
I went and had...
well, it was actually on the Capitol Hill.
That's right, on the other side of, that's right. Because I went and
Which was quite a dodgy area, funnily enough.
Yeah, it was. It was up and coming, so to speak.
I think it still is.
Yeah, I went to have lunch with her there once in a restaurant there, and Maggie was an amazing character.
She was.
She liked
Lovely
to drink.
woman.
She liked to drink, yeah.
She's still around, I think. I haven't spoken to her for many a year. But,
well, Brazil and I went to DC amazingly about 10 years ago, after the terrorism and all that kind of stuff, to the flight of death, so to speak, into Washington, D.C., because it's been cancelled. And while we were there, we were in a bar somewhere, and we got talking to some guys. Said we're, a British radio presenter. They said, we know an English... journalist person. It was Maggie.
All right.
And we rang her up.
Yeah.
And
Did she come down?
No, she couldn't come down, but we spoke to her on the phone.
No, very nice.
Yeah,
what a great story. Really more like that.
Yeah. Sorry?
You got any more stories like that?
Loads of stories
Tremendous.
like that. Yeah.
Now, we have to do listography, right?
Yes.
Which we'll do a little bit later on in the hour.
Yes.
We've got some suggestions here. If you've got any more suggestions, you can send them in. Hashtag listography.
Yeah.
Most famous person met, says Simon. Have we not done something like that? I'm not sure. Most famous person met.
I don't think we have.
Okay. 3 world records you could attempt to beat.
Yeah.
3 toys you had that are now worth money.
Yes.
Your favourite 3 photographs.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Your 3 best role models for future generations. The 3 careers you would have liked and why if you weren't top journalists or world-class radio presenters.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's tongue-in-cheek.
I quite like that.
You like that? Well, 3 jobs you would have done.
Yeah, sure.
We could also do your 3 favourite albums out of the album list, but maybe that's for another time.
Well, no, I mean, it's very relevant. It's the anniversary today, the 60th anniversary of the start of the pop charts in this country.
Okay.
So why not?
Should we do our 3 favourite albums?
Let's do that.
That's going to be tough, though. It's going to be like 3 favourite books, isn't it? There's so many to choose from.
Yeah, but I mean, you've just got to sift your mind and get the 3 best.
Yeah, 3 Queen's greatest hits, ABBA's greatest hits, and Beatles' greatest hits.
Well, why don't we make a rule that it can't be greatest hits?
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
3 favourite albums.
You haven't got any albums that aren't greatest hits, have you?
I have, loads of them.
Do you have to have them? I think you should have to have them.
Or have had them.
Okay.
Okay?
Or lost them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, fine, we'll do that.
Yeah.
3 of favourite albums. Okay, fine. Wonderful insight from Porky on hedgehogs, says Becky.
Thank you.
Basically, where is it? I've lost it here. Oh, here she goes. No, it's gone. Fine,
what?
No, my screen moved. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Definitely adding hedgehog hotspots onto my next UK visit.
Good.
But why Ipswich?
Good. Well, I don't know, because it's near the coast. It's, it's...
Yeah, but you could pick anywhere.
Suffolk has always been very rural. Well,
will the hedgehogs be financing these gardens through their own private hedge funds?
Hedge funds, I like that. That's very funny. No, it's just that Ipswich have decided to take the responsibility for leading the battle to save the hedgehog, and everybody should commend that and say that's a very good thing.
Do you remember there was a big hedgehog cull that was quite controversial up in Scotland? I think it was on.
Why was that?
Might have been on the island of Mull or the island of Skye. I can't remember which one it was. Because, funnily enough, hedgehogs are quite damaging in certain ways to
really
birds' nests. Yeah,
oh,
and there was a particular bird that chose this island in Scotland to nest in, and the hedgehogs kept going along and eating all the eggs.
Really?
So they decided to go into this island and basically kill all the hedgehogs.
Oh, that's terrible.
And there was an awful lot of uproar about it, except for the fact that it was being done for ecological reasons, because if they didn't kill the hedgehogs, then the birds would cease to exist.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they should have found another way to do it.
Well, what are they going to do? Ask them to get on a ferry?
Well, no, but
I mean, get the Pied Piper down there to lead them all off.
There's non-violent ways of trying to do those things. Yeah. Listen, you know when you go out for dinner sometimes, or lunch or something like that.
Went out for dinner last night.
Yeah, I know you did. But I'm talking about like more in a business sense.
In a business sense.
Yeah, and the person you're with, maybe you're being interviewed for a job or something like that or whatever.
I haven't done anything like that for a long time.
No, I haven't either. But, going out with maybe a superior person. So perhaps, you and I might have gone out for lunch with Sir Nick at the Express or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you know the way that that the business analysts say that you can impress your boss or a potential employer?
Well, I can tell you what you shouldn't do, and that is to get completely bladderated and make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what normally would happen in these situations. Right?
Well, not necessarily.
In the journalistic world, sometimes people would take you out for lunch to see how actually you could handle the drink.
Oh, definitely.
Didn't they?
Definitely. I remember before I got my job in Manchester on the Express, Stan Blenkinsop, who was mischievous like that, he took another applicant out for lunch, and they came back at 4 o'clock. And then Stan asked him to knock out a few lines on an agency story coming or something like that. Right. And the boy went down to sit at a desk, and in those days we still had typewriters, and he leaned forward and vomited all over the typewriter. Seriously.
I guess he didn't pass the audition.
No, he was never seen again.
When I first went to America, I got a job with one of these weekly magazines.
Yeah.
And I think it was on a Wednesday or something. That was the day that it went to press. So everybody went down to this little pub, and it was in a place called Tarrytown, called the Mustard Seed, right?
In Tarrytown, yeah.
And I said, all right, well, I'll come with you, it was just outside of New York, really. And so we were all there, and more as the afternoon wore on, and there was no idea that anyone was going back to work. Yeah. The phone would start to ring, and, first one guy would get the call and go back, then another guy would go. Well, finally, it was me and one other guy.
Yeah.
And and this was my first day at the job.
Yes.
Because they just asked me to come in for a shift.
Yeah.
And I actually got a call saying, are you coming back? And I went, oh, yeah, OK, I'll come back. And they were staggered that on my first day of work that I would have gone and got absolutely blutered. And I said, well, that's what everybody else was doing.
Yes.
And I came back, there was a typewriter. It's actually quite difficult to type on a typewriter when you've had a few.
Yeah, that's right.
Your fingers keep going through the key.
They probably thought that as you were the new boy, you'd seek to impress by coming back first.
They did think that, yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't.
But they still gave me about, 6 months worth of shifts after that.
That's all right, yeah, I suppose. Now, the reason I'm telling you a story is because what you're supposed to do is you sit down and then you always let the superior guy order first.
Yes.
And then you are supposed to say, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll have the same. Thank you.
Really?
That gets you the job.
No, you see, that sounds creepy.
No, that's and me as well. But this is what these people who run these business courses are saying. Scientists at the University of Chicago, studied 500 people to determine whether eating the same chocolate, sweets, or crisps or main course would help them agree in negotiations. Researchers found...
chocolate, sweets or crisps? What kind of dinner is that?
Well, I've no idea. But it says main courses as well.
All right, okay.
So, if the guy says, I'll have chicken, whatever, you say, I think I'll have that as well. You have a better chance of convincing your boss you deserve a pay rise if you eat the same meals as him.
Does that apply to the same drink as well? Like, for example, you meet in a bar and the guy stands there and says, I'll have a gin and tonic. Do you say, I'll have a gin and tonic as well?
Well, doesn't say anything about that. Doesn't say anything about that. But anyway, look, I always thought that incredibly... Do you know what? I would say exactly the opposite. I think if you go into a restaurant and the superior person, the senior person, and then you say, I'll have one of those as well, that is an act of real grovelling.
Well, it is, yeah. And funnily enough, I would say, and you may be in the same position, I've been in more situations like that where I've been interviewing somebody for a job
that's right,
rather than actually, applying for one.
Yeah.
And I would always take something like that as a really creepy thing to do.
Well, I'd also...
knock them off the list.
I'd say, not only is it creepy, I'd say this man hasn't got a mind of his own, or this woman hasn't got a mind of her own.
Or they're just trying to impress you in some way.
She says, you're really good at choosing what to eat. I'll have yours. I think it's mad.
No, I think that doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Dreadful.
Yeah, I think it's dreadful as well. But I remember once Solari Lamb took us all out for lunch at the
Savoy.
No, in New York at the South Street. Near where the New York
South Street Seaport
Post was. Yeah, South Street Seaport. And he insisted we all had what he had. He was having a ribeye steak.
Well, I was going to say, have you ever had that situation where somebody says, we'll have two of these, and you're just supposed to eat it?
Oh yeah, he was having a ribeye.
What's that noise?
I don't know.
Sorry, information device.
I think it's the information device. He was having a ribeye steak, and he told the waiter, "We'll all have a ribeye steak." Medium, well done, whatever, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah, we all had to have
That's
it.
awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
How about this from JL? He says, thanks for the Independence Day shout-out. Love you guys. MC says, Norwich should get more hedgehogs. People might actually go there. Plus, they can get one up on Ipswich.
Well, Norwich, is in Norfolk. Ipswich is in the mighty county of Suffolk.
Indeed.
Yes.
You still get paid for hedgehogs on South Uist in the Hebrides, says Ranger. So it must have been South Uist. There you go.
You still get what?
You get money for killing hedgehogs.
Oh, it's terrible. That's terrible. I'm not going there.
No, because they eat all the birds' eggs.
Oh, I'm not going there.
They're like they're preying on these birds.
They don't move that fast, hedgehogs.
No, well, the eggs don't move at all.
But hedgehogs don't climb trees to birds' nests.
Well, apparently they do.
No, they don't.
How else are they getting them?
Well, there must be birds that nest on the
ground. Maybe they're parachuting in, I don't know, but all I know is that there was a cull going on.
Birds that nested
on
the
ground.
ground.
And it had to be done.
It's not
anyway,
good.
Coming up, there's your phone making another noise again.
No, sorry, I don't know what that is.
Coming up, it's winners and losers. It's the second last one of the season.
Yep.
Not sure if there's been a more crucial episode of Winners and Losers because, as I said earlier, it's 6-5 to me. This is our third version of the game, I think, or fourth, actually, version of the game since we've been back together on the radio, and it is 6-5. So you need to draw level because it ends next week.
Right, OK.
If it goes to 7-5, we might as well not bother having one next week.
OK.
So I want you to try extra hard. Okay. To let it go all the way down to the wire.
Indeed.
People will be able to vote, of course, as soon as we've finished. Voting will be open until midnight tonight.
Yeah.
And good luck to all concerned.
Yeah,
would you like to go first with your losers or your winners?
Let me see. I'll go first with my losers, OK?
OK, then. Off you go.
Right, my three losers. Main loser today, Nick Kyrgios, OK? He is the Australian tennis player who went out in straight sets to Andy Murray and admitted afterwards he was pathetic.
Yes.
Because he simply didn't have his head together, didn't try harder. And as many people have pointed out since, when you're a professional tennis player and you've earned millions, you shouldn't then dismiss being part of the game.
Well, sometimes, but sometimes you're just not at the races, are you?
No. He said, I don't know whether I want to get up tomorrow and play tennis or not. I'm not sure. I'm not motivated.
He's a bit of a curious character, isn't he?
He is such a lucky man to be in that position that it's a disgrace that a young man like him with so much talent can be so dilettante about his job.
Okay.
Now, my second loser is Toto Wolff.
Who?
Toto Wolff.
Okay.
He's the Mercedes sports boss, OK? And he has criticised Lewis Hamilton for getting involved in a situation at the end of a race when he tried to win the race.
Well, he has to, doesn't he?
But then he said you could have knocked both cars out. The point is, it was very, very obvious that Nico Rosberg was at fault because he saw Lewis Hamilton coming through and swerved towards him and forced Lewis Hamilton off the track.
But he's right. I mean, they could have both been taken out of the race.
I don't care. Lewis Hamilton had a perfect right to take the racing line and saw a gap, went for that gap, and then Rosberg tried to close the gap. So it should have been Rosberg he should have criticised.
But you see, if Lewis
Hamilton
was a team player, he would have been quite happy to come in second, take the points, and let Rosberg win one.
Lewis Hamilton is an ambitious man who wants to be world champion again, and without that killer instinct that he has, he wouldn't have been a twice champion already.
That's true.
And my third loser, is David Bernstein.
Okay.
Who, amazingly, David Bernstein...
I thought you quite liked him.
No. David Bernstein is the chairman of the FA who appointed... Roy Hodgson, okay?
Yes.
And amazingly, after Roy Hodgson's pathetic performance as England manager at 3 tournaments...
And pathetic press conference
and
as well.
pathetic press conference and pathetic I don't know what I'm doing here, David Bernstein had the gall today to criticise Greg Dyke for being a poor chairman in the wake of him and not making enough reforms during the time he's been chairman.
Yeah.
When Greg Dyke from day one has been battling against the FA Council to try and introduce the reforms.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, he has. But I mean, I think Mr. Bernstein, who will go down in history as the man who gave us Roy Hodgson when we wanted Harry Redknapp, right, and that's exactly what he did, had an awful... he had the cheek to criticise Greg Dyke. I don't think Greg Dyke's been a great FA chairman,
I don't either.
but he's been no worse than David.
Presumably,
no worse.
Did Bernstein also appoint Greg Dyke as a successor?
No, he didn't. No, he had nothing to do with successor, to be honest.
Because I did see a tweet from the FA to you last week when you were claiming that Glenn was the guy that appointed him, and they said no, he didn't.
Yeah, that's right, so they're my 3 losers, and I commend them, definitely Nick Kyrgios, definitely Toto Wolff, the head of Mercedes Sport, and definitely the ex-FA chairman, David Bernstein.
OK, well, I'm going to say Toto Wolff is the wrong guy to go for because he's doing his job by criticising Hamilton. Because
we're not interested in what you think about mine, we're interested in what yours are.
Well, there's relevance to what I'm saying because what I'm saying is Nico Rosberg is the loser for me this weekend because here's a guy who led the race pretty much from the
start to finish.
From start to finish. I mean, at one point there was the pit scenario was going on and he lost the lead, but he got it back. And I mean, how can you be within literally kind of throwing distance practically of the checkered flag and allow what happened to happen? Most people seem to be saying that it was, as you said, his fault for somehow causing a collision.
It was
because he should know that Lewis Hamilton's going to come up behind him. So he's really idiotic this weekend. And for me, not only making himself look stupid, but he didn't even make the podium. He came in 4th. So he's my first one. My second loser is not Chris Evans because Chris Evans has been a very successful guy, and although he's probably not very happy about leaving Top Gear, I'm going to say it's the BBC because the BBC have spent months and months and months preparing this show, millions and millions of pounds of licence payers' money, and it's been a complete disaster. And it's been now proven to show that they picked the wrong host. It looks now like Matt LeBlanc's going to stay on, and they've wasted loads and loads of money. The ratings are lower than they've ever been, and it's a complete disaster, and you have to blame the BBC for that, in my view.
But that's a huge generality, that, because the BBC are a massive organisation, they're responsible for all sorts of things.
This is their flagship show. They've been going on about it for months, they've been previewing it and promoting it for months, and Chris Evans was going to be the great star of it, and now that's all turned into dust.
Chris Evans wasn't up to the job, I'm afraid.
Well, he wasn't, but they should have known that. They should have known that. And my final one is Chris Smalling, because, I mean, I'm hoping that he's going to be on the recovery trail. You were saying he's sitting up signing autographs and all that kind of thing, but it's a very strange story. We may find out the truth at some point soon. But the idea that you sort of get food poisoning and fall over, I suppose it could happen, but it just seems very odd. And after a terrible Euros, for him to go to Bali and have the holiday of a lifetime and end up in hospital, then you'd have to say he is a loser. For whatever reason, the whole thing happened. Let's do the winners.
Okay.
Everyone's a winner, baby, that's no lie. That's no lie. You never fail to satisfy.
I'm going to go first with my winners, and my first winner, I have to say, is Gareth Bale.
Right.
Not just because he has sort of steered Wales to a magnificent first semi-final in the Euros, I think, ever, but because he's such a great ambassador. We were talking about this earlier. Whenever you hear him speak, he seems very confident, he seems very articulate, he seems very relaxed, very much in charge, and sort of at the same time as being very fair to his opponents. He's also very kind of complimentary about his teammates. He's almost like the perfect team player. And I think he's done wonders for British football, Welsh football, of course, as well. And I just think we have to put him down as a winner, regardless of the result tomorrow night. Pep Guardiola is my second winner.
Right.
He was unveiled, of course.
Anything,
hang on, he was unveiled at Manchester City yesterday.
Yes.
Today they're going to unveil Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
But he's come to Manchester City at a time when they're saying they basically want to dominate the Premier League, but also the company that owns it wants to dominate the world.
But he hasn't won anything.
And apparently he can make himself, and this is where you'll like it, £150 million as a central figure in Manchester City's global master plan over the next 3 years.
But that's very presumptuous. He hasn't won anything yet.
Well, you mean you're constantly you put Butter in once as a winner.
No,
Butter hasn't won anything.
Well, I'm sorry, mate, but anyway, go on.
My other winner is Andy Murray. You've gone as always for the negative because you don't like Andy Murray, but it's not about.
I
not about Nick Kyrgios.
It's not about Nick Kyrgios.
No, it's about Andy Murray getting himself into the quarterfinals because, of course, we know that Novak Djokovic.
That's the seventh time he's been in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, but Novak Djokovic is out of the competition, right?
Yeah.
We remember talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Nobody knows why he's not quite feeling 100% fit, but he's not. Roger Federer is still playing pretty well, but you'd have to say Andy Murray's got the greatest chance he's had really ever to win Wimbledon for the second time. So hopefully that will happen.
Okay.
And my final winner...
No, you've had three.
Oh, that's three, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many winners do you want?
Well, I can give you another one if you like.
No, thanks. No.
All right.
No. Okay, well, I thought they were a bit weak, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, because there didn't seem to be anybody who's actually won anything.
To quote you, one of my choices got to do with you.
Oh, well, OK, fine. Right, my winners. Now, I didn't single out Gareth Bale because I think that's unfair to the rest of the Welsh team.
Okay.
So mine is Wales. Whether they win or lose... Wales, the country, Wales, the football team.
Okay.
Whether they win or lose tonight, they have been magnificent. They've shown the way to England and other nations like Belgium, and they've been great for the tournament. So I don't want to single out Gareth Bale, although he is a magnificent member of that team. Wales, because that also includes their manager, Chris Coleman, and they have been superb. My second winner... And it's a bit of a tragedy, but it's a very worthy winner, is Kieran Fallon. Kieran Fallon has announced yesterday, his retirement from racing altogether after a 3-year hiatus because he's been suffering from depression. But you look at the man's record as a jockey, it is outstanding. Champion jockey 6 times, I think. Winner of the Derby 3 times, winner of the Oaks, the Guineas, 1,000 Guineas, 2,000 Guineas. Magnificent record. And I think we should remember just what a brilliant sportsman he is. His record stands second only to Lester Piggott in the annals of racing history. He is a winner. And my third winner, and I make no apologies for it being posthumous, is Caroline Aherne. It has to be. She was a wonderful actress, a wonderful woman.
You're just doing
wonderful
this to get
comedian.
some kind of...
Not at all.
It's not going to work.
Not at all.
How can you have somebody who's just died as a winner?
Because her memory will last forever and be cherished forever as a woman who brought so much pleasure to so many lives. The Mrs. Merton thing we all know about, the shows that she appeared on, the one-liners. And I'm sorry, I can't let her very tragic death pass by, the age of 52 with cancer, without nominating her as a winner, an outstanding winner. Posthumous, I know, but very, very worthy in my view.
That is unbelievable. Absolutely incredible.
Well, normal people wouldn't have thought that way, but I have to, because I have such a deep well of respect and affection for her.
You're a big fan of hers, are you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Seen everything she's ever done?
Seen lots of stuff she has done, lots of stuff.
As well as the royal family?
Oh, absolutely.
What else was she in?
Sorry?
What else was she in?
Well, Mrs. Merton, of course.
Mrs. Merton. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, all sorts of shows, but I mean, that's not an inquest into Caroline Aherne. Stop blackening her name.
I'm not blackening her name. I'm just trying to find out if you're as big a fan of hers as you say.
She is one of my winners, OK?
Yeah, OK, all right. Yeah. So, those are the winners and losers. It is the penultimate edition, right? So, if you want to keep Porky in the race, I suppose I might as well tell you to vote for him, but if you want to kick him out of the race, you vote for me. Go on to Twitter now, and we'll have the result for you at midnight tonight.
Indeed.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. Go to our Twitter page at the Two Mics, and you can vote in the second last winners and losers for this particular season. We'll give you an early voting indication coming up in a little while, and I'll read you some tweets that have come in. Some people are dismissing yours, others are saying it's great. Lots of different views coming in. But now we've got to do listography, so we're going to do our 3 favourite albums, right?
That's right.
Of all time.
Indeed.
And as we said, it's the 60th anniversary of the start of the charts.
That's right.
And Queen's Greatest Hits is number 1.
Yes.
You've said though we can't have Greatest Hits albums.
Yes, I think that's fair enough.
Which I
you?
think is very fair. I wouldn't have those either.
No.
So would you like to go first with your first album?
My first album, my most favourite album of all time. If I could take one away with me, and the only one I ever had, the White Album by the Beatles.
Okay. Which is a double album.
A double album.
Does that count as 2 or one counts as 1?
That's right. But it's one album, wasn't it?
When did you buy that?
When did I buy it? When it came out in 1968, I think.
Right, okay.
And the other thing, the amazing thing about it was that when Brian Epstein died before Sgt. Pepper's, he left a note that he wanted the cover of Sgt. Pepper's to be plain white.
Right.
Seriously. But so much artwork had gone into producing it, and the record company was so far forward.
And it's become a very famous cover, hasn't it, now?
Most famous of all time, probably. Yeah. And so much work had been put in it, and the record company had put so much work into it and so much store by it. They went ahead and they ignored his wishes.
Right.
So the Beatles then made the White Album in memory of Brian Epstein.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I only ever had for a long time one side of the White Album, because I used to go to this record shop in Islington, I think it was, or Holloway.
Yeah.
And I went to buy Band on the Run. When the Band on the Run album came out, and I got it home.
But that was years later.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But I was in the 60s, I wasn't buying albums, I wasn't old enough,
Right.
So I went to buy Band on the Run, I got it home, took it out, and it was one album from the White Album.
No.
Yeah, so of course
Was it the first or the second?
I think it was the first. I think it was, record 1.
Well, it starts with back in the USSR.
Yeah, that's right. So I recorded it on a cassette and took it back and said, you've given me the wrong record here. So I only ever had that one part of the White Album until I bought it later on.
That's quite interesting.
I'm going to give you my first. My first is Quadrophenia by The Who.
Yeah, well, of course, you're a big Who fan, yeah.
You might have seen the movie with Sting, of course, and Leslie Ash.
I have, yes.
A great movie, but also a fantastic album. One of the things I used to love to do when I was, bored and feckless, if you like, you could lie in a sort of dark room listening to Keith Moon's drumming.
Yes.
Because his drumming on Quadrophenia is amazing.
Yeah, sure.
He doesn't drum like anybody else.
Sure. And he died young, of course.
He did?
He wasn't a member of the 27 Club.
I can't remember if he was 27.
I think
he might have been a bit older.
I think he was.
Okay, go on. What's your second one then?
My second one is What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Okay.
So that's Oasis.
Well, Liam will be pleased about that.
And Liam should be very pleased with it, because of course he was an essential part of it. Without his vocals, that wouldn't have been anything, would it?
It wouldn't.
But I mean, that to me, the reason why I nominate that one second is because for decades I was locked in this sort of, Beatles, Rolling Stones, David Bowie, and then a bit later on Queen type warp, you know what I mean? And I never listened to any more music. Many people don't. Many people don't listen to any more music after the age of 25.
Right.
And they stick with it. And then all of a sudden, somebody said, you really should listen to Oasis. You'd really like... And I bought this album, and for the first time in my life, I actually lay down on the couch, put it on, and started listening to it without a drink. You know what I mean?
Without a drink?
To influence my thinking pattern.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is even more amazing.
And then I listened to it, and I thought it was brilliant. So then I listened to it again with lots of drink.
Yeah.
And it got even better.
And it got better,
yeah.
And you could sing along to it.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
As I've said before, it's going to be always very difficult to pick 3 albums, because, I've got so many and I listen to a lot of music anyway. But I'm going to say Born to Run.
Born to Run.
Which was Bruce Springsteen's album in 1975. He came to London, played the Hammersmith Odeon as it was then.
Yeah.
And he was being hailed as a new Bob Dylan and everything else. And it took me a little while to get into Bruce Springsteen. And lots of his albums are great. His latter stuff, not so much, but Born to Run with Thunder Road on it and Jungle Land and all these songs. It's fantastic rock and roll albums. I'm going to put that one in.
Brilliant. Okay, fine. Now, my third one is an album which really not many people will even remember. But because I was a Beatles fanatic, and as a kid even more so, when the Beatles broke up in 1970, all anybody wanted then was to hear something more from anybody in the Beatles, and the first one to get anything out was McCartney. Yeah. And he produced an album called McCartney.
Was that the one with the baby?
He had a picture of him on the front with he had a fur coat on, and he had a beard, and he had his little baby nestled inside the fur coat, And
presumably that wasn't a real fur coat, was it? Because he was with Linda then, wasn't he?
Well, it was a shaggy coat, so to speak. It's like
but I just wonder. I don't know.
I've never found out whether it was or not, but it looked fur. I think the picture was taken up in Mull Kintyre, and it was a sort of coat you'd wear against the sort of bracing winds blowing in off the Mull Kintyre, and that sort of thing. Now, on the back of that album was it was very interesting. There was a bowl. And there was nothing in the bowl, but there were a load of cherries around the edge of the bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And that signified life is not a bowl of cherries, even if you're a Beatle.
Ah,
amazingly.
Okay.
It was coded.
Yeah,
coded.
it's not very coded, but well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, what's your favourite song from that album, then?
Well, you see, this is the point. There weren't any great songs on that album, but what I'm saying is I was so into the Beatles that I heard it, and every single song was magical, even though there wasn't much on it of any quality.
Right.
Because it had been put together very hastily, as, McCartney... And it went straight to number 1, by the way, because it was Paul McCartney.
Right.
But my favourite song on it was... it went like this, something like Prams and Wheels. I know it was called Junk, and it was about junk being thrown in a canal.
Right,
believe it or not,
sticking out of a canal.
Yeah, that's right. Honestly, it was, and that kind of stuff. But there was one.
But I know what you mean. It's not about the music. It's more about your memory of it all.
It was, it was music from McCartney on his own for the first time ever. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
That didn't involve the Beatles or John Lennon, and it was mesmeric just listening to it. You thought, wow, this is crazy, But it was brilliant stuff. There was a record on it called Mama Miss America, where he just sat at a piano, banged a book on the piano a couple of times instead of drums, and then just played do 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 do. I thought, this is McCartney playing the piano. It was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a good enough choice, I suppose.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, it's impossible to pick 3 albums out of all of the ones that are great. A lot of people say Dark Side of the Moon is Pink Floyd's greatest album. I actually prefer, bizarrely, listening to it, is Wish You Were Here. Wish You Were Here, I think, is a much more kind of rich album in all sorts of different ways. So I play that one, I would say, more than I play Dark Side of the Moon. And I think I'm right in saying that it was one of the albums that I picked up in Our Price Records, when Our Price Records first started.
Oh, yes.
And there was one on Finchley Road where I used to live. And I used to spend many an hour in there. And it's that very famous cover where the guy's on fire.
Yes.
They're both shaking hands with each other. You know that one?
No.
You don't know? Have you ever heard Wish You Were Here?
No. I didn't know it was by. It's by Pink Floyd.
It's by Pink Floyd, yeah. And so I'm going Quadrophenia, Wish You Were Here, Born to Run. You're going with McCartney, as it was.
I'm going with the White Album. I'm going with Morning Glory. What's the story? Morning Glory. And McCartney.
And a bit of a theme there. So that's our listography. We've got much more to do, but without very much time. How about some tweets on the subject of the winners and losers? A lot of people have picked up on my not-so-coded message.
Yes.
That's basically, if you don't win this one, then it's done.
Yeah.
Tough choice this week. Do we take winners and losers into another week, says Becky.
Yeah.
Porky gets my vote. Better choices overall.
Thank you.
Here's one from Melvin, who says, my top 3 albums are Dark Side of the Moon, London, Nil, Hull 4 and Revolver.
Yes.
And here's one from Ernie, who says, you got my vote, Mike, because Mike Parry making Caroline Aherne a winner. She died. How can anyone be a winner for dying?
Because she had such a fantastic life, and she fought against cancer 3 times in her life and still got through to the age of 52 and was genius, produced genius. Okay. So that's why I nominated.
Well, Perfect Pitch says the same. Caroline Aherne is all of those things and a huge amount more. She's brilliant, but to call her a winner, you're a monumental pillock.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very harsh statement, and one that's not worthy of a lovely lady like her.
Thomas says, obviously, Mike Graham wants winners and losers next Tuesday because those choices were awful. King Mike Parry is the winner this week.
Thank you.
The fact that you refer to Mike Parry as the king suggests to me you're part of the Porky tribe.
No, not
so
at
you probably vote for him anyway.
Not at all.
Steve says MG just about edges it for me this week. John says Porky tugging on the heartstrings, disgraceful. MG landslide. I predict winners and losers will go to the wire next week. Porky just shades it. I think people want it to go to the wire. I think that's the point.
Well, no, I think
you will be the recipient of that situation.
I think my selections were easily the best. Now listen, I need to talk to you about pears.
Pears?
Yeah, pears.
Well, you're making another flan?
No, not making a flan. No, not making a flan, not making a pear flan. But why do you think it is that we can walk into shops at any time and buy a bag of apples and then happily stroll down the street eating a couple of apples? Why do you think it is?
Because we live in a Western democracy.
Well, why can't we do it with pears?
What?
Why can't we do it with pears?
What do you mean?
Well, pears grow on trees like apples do, so why aren't pears as accessible to us to eat? Because they're nicer.
Well,
I think a properly ripe pear.
Where have you been? Have you been some pear-free zone? Where have you been where you can't get pears?
No, you can't get pears.
Where?
No.
Where can you not get pears?
You can't get pears ready to eat in most shops.
Of course you can. What do you mean ready to eat?
Pears usually have to be ripened for 2 or 3 days after you buy them.
No, you can buy ready-to-eat pears if that's what you want to call them.
Well, did you know that apples are treated with something called Smart Fresh?
Yes.
And that is a ripening
that depends
factor.
where you buy them, though, doesn't it?
It depends where you buy them. But apples are ready to eat off the tree.
Some of them are waxed as well, although they seem to be going away from that now.
Some of them are waxed. Now, the problem is this doesn't happen to pears.
I like a waxed apple.
Smart Fresh, when it was introduced, some decades ago, changed the apple market. You can now get apples throughout the year, right? But how
is this news to you?
Well, because they're going to try and do it with pears now, so pears will be as accessible
I've never
as
gone
apples.
Anywhere wanting to buy pears. and found that I couldn't.
Well, listen to this. Pears, unlike apples, are not ripe when picked off a tree. So when the same smart fresh process is applied to a pear, it produces a good-looking but inedible fruit.
Yeah.
If we were to bite into a pear, you'd spit it right out. It'd be hard and
when you buy them in the
unsustainable.
shop, generally speaking, they are ripe.
They haven't been ripened properly.
That's not
properly.
True.
No.
Why don't you just get them out of a tin then?
Anyway, a guy who's going to change all this is a chap called Professor Dingra. You know, you're laughing.
Does he know anything about hedgehogs?
No, Professor Dingra works in the Department of Horticulture
Professor
at Washington.
Dingbats.
No, Dingra, you fool.
Maybe we should get him on.
Dingra.
Should we get him on the show?
We'll get him on the show. Definitely get him on the show later in the week.
Right.
He works in the Department of Horticulture at Washington State University, right?
Department of Pear Maintenance.
Yeah, and he's going to he's going to apply a new compound that helps to ripen pears after they've been treated with Smart Fresh. He's found the solution after studying the pear's genome and identifying a metallic... What's your problem?
You mean genome?
Yeah, the genome, and identifying a metallic compound...
Riding around in my genome Cadillac.
In the metallic compound in the plant that could restart the ripening process.
Great.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Apparently they are very good.
They are. You should get Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here.
I was going to say, that's the sort of, music that I quite like, really, so maybe I should have listened to it in the past.
OK.
But I'll definitely listen to it now.
Right. Now, I can give you an update on the scoring so far. 120 votes have been cast.
Yes.
It is 55 to 45.
Yes.
In your favour.
In my favour. Right. Well,
I think people are buying into the idea of keeping it going for the final week.
Well, you're going to use that as an excuse, but I thought my choices were actually quite pertinent, and I thought yours were a little weak this week.
Yeah.
I don't think you gave it enough thought, and I think that's because you were bladderised overnight.
Not true. Absolutely not true. Tough choice this week. Do we take winners and losers into another week?
Yeah.
Says Ian.
I think it's affected your thinking pattern.
Not at all.
Do you want to hear more about the pears?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
What on earth gave you the idea that you can't buy pears that you can simply eat?
You can't.
Yes, you can.
I've never walked into a supermarket and bit into a pear without thinking this tastes hard, tastes bitter,
well, I'll tell you what,
skin is scaly, I don't want to eat it.
Scaly? That's not a pear you're eating.
Yeah, it is.
That's definitely not a pear.
You know, it's coarse and rough, the skin of a pear.
Not really.
Whereas the skin of an apple is lovely and smooth.
Yeah, but you can get different pears now, different kinds of pears. I will challenge you to go into a supermarket over the course of the next, few hours.
Yeah, OK.
When you're not doing any paperwork, and just go and buy a pear that you can eat, and you'll find one, no problem.
What they're going to do is, before they put pears in supermarkets in future, they're going to soak them in water for 24 hours into a special compound that Professor Dangy has...
well, how's he going to get all of this special compound to every single pear manufacturer?
Professor Dingra.
Dingra?
Yeah.
How's he going to get this special compound to every pear manufacturer in the world?
In the same way as they got Smart Fresh to every apple producer
Sounds
in the
like he's just trying to make a bit of a patent and make a load of money.
I don't think so.
Sounds like it to me. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mikes at the Two Mikes on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mikes TV.
There's quite a few things called Oasis. There's a drink called Oasis.
There is,
in plastic bottles, which you buy in railway stations and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
there are other places where you can buy it. It's not just available in railway stations in plastic bottles.
No, but that's where I...
that's you. And that is you in a nutshell, isn't it?
Well,
because you only buy Oasis drinks in a railway station, you think that's the only place they get sold?
No, not necessarily.
It's typically you, that.
No. Oh, I'm not going there.
They're like they're preying on these
They don't
birds.
move that fast, hedgehogs.
No, well, the eggs don't move at all.
If you love the Two Mikes podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
Talk Sport.
Imagine getting in a canoe in Glasgow and just going with the flow and whoosh, off you're away, and very soon you'd be in Istanbul.
Amazing what goes through your mind.